Should I wait? Yeah, 6:30. Calling meeting to order. Well, we got a lot on the agenda tonight, so we're gonna move forward. Now I'm going to call for a moment of reflection. Item 3, so confirmation of the agenda. I would like to point out tonight we have we have the addition of 8.3/D, the tender award for the building condition assessment. And since we're awaiting another counselor for the Benner drain, I've decided that we would like to move the Arboretum up so they can make their presentation. So with those adjustments, I have a recommendation that the council agenda dated April 15th, 2025 be approved and circulated as amended. Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Jeffbell. All those in favor? Carried. Declaration of pecuniary interest for anyone? Councillor Vanessa?
8.4G. The landfill.
Okay. We need to sign something now, or? Oh, we could just sign it. Anytime you're ready. So I'll keep going. There's no report in the closed session. Nothing, for consent agenda items in 6.1 to 6.13. Would anybody like anything pulled? Seeing none. I have a recommendation that the consent agenda items 6.1 to 6.13 be received for information of the regular council minutes of April 1st, 2025 and special council minutes of April 9th, 2025 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Corby, seconded by Councillor Wilhelm. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, we're moving on to item 7, the public meetings, hearings and delegations. And we are going to move to the Kirkland Woodham Arboretum, and your Nancy and Robert Schroeder here, and they're going to make a presentation. And do we have something on the screen that we have to follow too, or?
We were given the information in the packet, the map and the Word document.
Do you want to follow the screen, or do you just want to speak to it?
Well, I've prepared some notes that I hope you all had a chance to have a look at those, so just to save time, I'm not gonna read the preamble part.
Sure, we'll just put the map up. So
That's great.
yes,
Thank you.
go ahead. The floor is
Just so
yours.
that we'll have a chance to discuss these questions. First of all, by way of introduction, my name is Robert Trump. This is my wife Nancy Trump. We're members of the committee for the Arboretum. And we appreciate this opportunity to speak to you today about the Arboretum and promote its advantages to you and be able to get some answers to some of the questions that we have. Starting off with, first of all, we've never really ever had an opportunity to discuss the Arboretum with the township, so we have some fairly broad sort of questions. Like, first of all, are we a committee of the township as? And would a member of council like to be on the Arboretum committee, or at least receive notifications of when our meetings are, so that someone from council can attend if they would like it?
Do you want us to answer them, or do you want to just say the questions and then we'll come back with a full report as to what we believe?
Yeah, I think that's probably best. If I just go through the questions with you and just answer any of your questions that you might have for clarification, and then if you want to, put something on paper for us, that would be great.
And we have some new staff, so we also try to look back to the.
Yeah, so everybody's kind of learning as we go here.
Yes.
So that would be great.
Continue.
We know also that we do have an account for the Arboretum here at the township. And so we just have 2 questions about it as to how much there is in that account. Are the donations being received in that account, because memorial donations can be made to that account? And do they receive a tax receipt? Is the Arboretum a township budget item? Like, is it something that you would regularly make additions to that account? Or is that something that we would need to request, or just how exactly was that done?
We do have an answer about how much funds we're in, because we looked ahead of time, so I could give you that if you'd like.
Yeah, well, I talked to Tracy about it, and, yep, I think we understand the account part there, we're gonna do some talking about that, so. And how do we keep track of this information? We've sort of got that sorted. The Arboretum covered for public and personal liability. I guess there are questions as committee members, do we have special coverage? Like, are we covered for, you know, events that take place there, nuisance lawsuits, all these other kinds of things that might occur? We just want to be assured that when we're out there, we're actually sort of under the township umbrella.
Great question.
If that, yeah. Can we access township resources? I.e. equipment and manpower for projects like trail improvement and tree maintenance and removal. Can the Arboretum be designated as a place of carbon sequestration? I don't know if that's something that you're looking for. You know, whether each township has some kind of commitment to sequester carbon, or whether that's something that you can use as a, you know, sort of arrow in your quiver type of thing in the future. But be aware that it is a place of carbon sequestration. So if that is an opportunity for you to take advantage of some, you know, government perk or whatever, that we're there to sequester your carbon. It's all safe for us to breathe again. Can we promote the Arboretum through the township by the use of newsletters, pamphlets, and road signs? There in particular, we're thinking of a more highly visible road sign, something that people will be able to see as they go by. Right now, we do have a sign that's very small and it sort of faces the road instead of being positioned so that it can be seen on the way by. And we make good use of the township's regular supply of wood chips, and we can always use more. So I think the Works Department knows that we are a convenient depository for those, and yeah, it might save the trip, you know, back and forth. What does the township see as the future direction and development of the Arboretum? We would like to know that, you know, just if you have some special things in mind, or if you feel that something could be done to the Arboretum to make it more user friendly or anything else, we're certainly happy to entertain those. In the short term, the Arboretum Committee is producing an inventory and mapping the trees that exist. We'll continue to plant and maintain trees, shrubs, fulfilling the objective of the Arboretum. A small shed could be erected for the storage of staples, cubes, and tree wraps to make this easier. We just would like to have something to put our supplies in so that we don't have to keep constantly bringing them back and forth. And also we do pick up garbage and that sort of thing. We sort of need a spot to put that as well, and maybe somewhere for people to put their dog waste type stuff into as well. To make the Arboretum more noticeable and appealing to the public, some improvements can include an open road sign designation as a rest area, and by that I mean one of those little blue signs that says rest area that you see. We take advantage of those when we're on trips up north. There's a couple spots that we regularly stop at, and you know, we think our Arboretum would make a great spot for a rest area, especially now that we have picnic tables or a picnic table and that sort of thing as well. And pond.
Well, the pond used to be a perfect spot for people
Oh.
to stop in the Kirkton area. There was a little washroom there. There was a picnic tables, and it was kind of a pretty little nature area. Now it's of course gone. And so there's nowhere to stop in the greater Kirkton area.
So yeah, we think it's a perfect spot for something like that. And perhaps like a portable toilet and additional picnic tables could be put in there as well. One of the only on the spot type of things. We could have garbage there too, but you know, being the environmentally sort of responsible, trying to make people realize that if they bring the garbage in, they should take it back out with them. And that's sort of the approach that we'd like to take, is that if you bring it, take it back home with you. Some stone dust sections of the trail can provide wheelchair access to a trail loop with additional loops added over time. And in an area could be fenced for a dog park. We're really just spitballing there, you know, sort of like in our grand scheme of things, what could be possible. But you can see from the map, we have various loops that, are various sizes and that sort of thing, and the wheelchair accessible thing, even if we just started with, you know, one small loop and just, made that wheelchair accessible, then, it would be possible to increase those, wheelchair accessible pathways over time, if that's something that the township thinks is a good idea. The memorial aspect of the Arboretum needs a focus. Pavilion or building where the names of those remembered could be displayed. Picnic tables could also be placed there, and this could be anything from something similar to what's up at the Clinton Conservation Area, where they have a fairly large roofed building with a number of picnic tables and that sort of thing. We've been to some others that are considerably smaller, still a roofed building. But I was at a conservation area in Harrington the other day where they just simply have a sign with the people's names written on it, out in the open knoll building or anything like that. But are to sort of fulfill that memorial aspect of the Arboretum, we really do need something like that, a focus for that. And because people are donating back to Horticultural Society as a standing donation for any person's parent with all who passes away, that they can donate to the Arboretum for, you know, memory. So those donations are being made. There is 75 acres that in total in the Arboretum property. 50 acres of that's on the far side of Fish Creek there is basically consists of a reforested area and a regrowth area that comprises that 50 acres. And there could be an assessment done in there with a long-term plan developed. There is a potential for someday to be able to take logs out of there, white pine logs, walnut logs, that type of thing. And so I want council to be aware that there is that possibility as well. But there presently is no access, bridge or culvert across Fish Creek. The remnants of an old crossing exist, but improvements are required. There is a well on the property that supplied water to the Air Force at Centralia during World War II. And it's basically a local historic site and could actually be signed as such as well somewhere on the highway. We appreciate this opportunity to present this information and look forward to our discussions in the future, and certainly more regular reports from us to you to know, so that you know what things are happening at the Arboretum. And we look forward to your input as well. So thanks very much for this opportunity to talk to you. If anyone has any questions, we'll be happy to entertain them.
Any questions for the Trouts? No, Deputy Mayor.
No, I just wanna congratulate you and thank you and your committee for a great job you have done and you continue to do. I know I drive by quite often and been there a couple times, and it's something that certainly could be developed with some funds and just some future thoughts.
Yeah, well, we look forward to that. Thanks.
Councillor.
I know Bob's been to the Arboretum before, and we appreciate him coming down. Sorry.
Councillor Bell.
Yes, had the opportunity on Sunday, took advantage of the nice day, went for a walk to refresh myself, it's been a while. My daughter has many fond sometimes fond, sometimes not so fond memories of planting trees there with girls as well. She was in her.
Sure, absolutely.
Question, so on the outside loop, what I was disappointed, you know, certainly there's the sign no motorized vehicles.
Yeah.
But there's a very heavily used four-wheeler trail.
Yeah,
Through there.
right along the creek.
Yeah, right down in there.
Yeah,
And there was evidence, I could see four-wheeler tracks on the other.
yeah.
trails.
I know, and you know, this is something that we discussed as a committee, and you know, when you stand there and sort of look at it, you think, yeah, they're, you know, is this really an appropriate use for the Arboretum? But then they start that trail starts way back at the back of that property.
Yeah, I can
access it from someone else's property and that type of thing. And to be honest, standing there looking at it, we've sort of said, well, you know, we'd really rather they didn't, but they are staying on their own trail.
Okay,
Being responsible.
okay.
The place where they're really causing the most damage is where they cross the road.
Absolutely, I walked down to see.
Yeah, well, that's sort of the part that concerns me the most, seeing that I used to be a drainage superintendent, and yeah, I'm aware of sort of erosion problems, that type of thing. And that could definitely be improved with something like just a low flow crossing. In fact, that's kind of what I was thinking about for getting access to the back in the
Okay.
short term anyway. It's just a low flow crossing where you have a reinforced bed so that people can drive through the water without degrading the banks on either side or the bottom of the water course. So yeah, that is something that we're sort of monitoring,
Okay.
but we're quite pleased there this winter with all the snow and everything else. Snowmobiles, we were concerned about running over trees and this type of thing, but as far as we can see, there's very little damage from
No,
them.
no, it looked very well maintained, I didn't see a lot, like the parking lot was clean, that impressed me. There wasn't garbage laying around, no, dog poop bags laying there. So kudos, it's beautiful,
Well,
and
thanks.
it was nice to get back out there again.
Yeah, well, you're more than welcome anytime. Our next cleanup day is April 26th.
Yeah.
Oh,
Not for dog poop either.
Yeah.
You might get to do some mulching and trimming and such. Well, no further questions. Thanks again so much for
Thank you
allowing us
so
this
much for coming.
opportunity. We look forward to talking with you in the future. Thank you.
We will be in touch.
Thanks a lot.
for your time.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. I have a recommendation that the council receives the presentation regarding the Kirkton Woodham Arboretum. Moved by Councilor Vanessa, seconded by Councilor Bell. All those in favor? Carried. And we are, I believe, now going to go to the Court of Revision for the Benner Drain, if I'm correct. Yes, I think, right. You need me to say this? Do you need to? Oh, no. Okay. So, you need to. All right. So I have a recommendation that the council of the township of Perth South does appoint the following members to sit at the Court of Revision for the Benner Drain. Councillor Sam Corview, Councillor Jamie Martin, and Councillor Alex Westman. Moved by Council Deputy Mayor Wilhelm, second by Councillor Corby. All those in favor? Carried. And who is taking, so I'm going to recess our normal council, but the council does recess at 6:47 in order to hold the Court of Revision for the Benner Drain. Moved by Councillor Martin, second by Councillor Vanessa. All those in favor? Carried. So I will just.
I, Jamie Martin, do solemnly swear that I will, to the best of my judgment and ability, without fear, favor, or partiality, honestly decide the appeals to the Court of Revision for the assessments appearing in the provisional bylaw entitled the Benner Drain, that may be brought before me as for trial as a member of such court.
Thank you. Councillor Westman?
Yes.
You can read your oath, please.
I, Alex Westman, do solemnly swear that I will, to the best of my judgment and ability, without fear, favor, or partiality, honestly decide the appeals to the Court of Revision from the assessments appearing in the provisional bylaws entitled the Benner Drain that may be brought before me for trial as a member of such court.
I, Sam Corby, do solemnly swear that I will, to the best of my judgment and ability, without fear, favor, or partiality, honestly decide the appeals to this Court of Revision from the assessments appearing in the provisional bylaw entitled the Benner Drain that may be brought before me for trial as member of such court. All right, I'd like to call this Court of Revision to order and note that this meeting refers to the municipal drain named Benner Drain, February 2025, and Spree Associates are the agent or the drain guys. So I'd like to get Brandon, you want to do an overview of the drain?
Yes, we can quickly go over it. So this is a section 4 drain, which means it's a brand new drain. It was initiated by the Benners, who are Perth South resident, for mainly dealing with water coming from Lucan Vidal from one landowner, upstream, our Hardy. The drain itself is rather small as drains go. It's 147 meters long. The estimated project cost was $66,000. So it's assessed to those two landowners, as well as to Clark Road and Round Line. Round Line is split between the two municipalities. Both landowners have been made aware. I don't believe any appeals have been received.
No appeals.
Okay, if, let's see. So is there anybody in attendance that would like to make a comment on the drain?
I'll see the Benners.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions for your Board of Review members?
Yeah, is there any questions from the Court of Revision members? Do you have any questions? No. Okay, go back. So the Court of Revision for the Bennett Drain does hereby accept the recommendation for Brandon Engineer of Sprea Associates on Treasurer, does hereby confirm the drain assessments as outlined in the adjustment schedule dated February 20th, 2025. And
We need it.
a mover and a seconder, Jamie, Alex. All in favor? And so the recommendation here, that the Court of Revision for the Bennett Drain does hereby adjourn at 6:52. I could have a second mover, Jamie, Alex, all in favor?
Thank you so much for coming.
Don't mind sticking around.
You're welcome to.
Well, next time you come to Luton Vidal, I invite you all to stay. We have a good strong coffee. Thanks, Lord.
All right, we're at item 7.2 before we do that.
So because there were no appeals, we did have a, we did have a tender called for the better drain. So if, Brandon could speak to the tender results.
Yeah, so the Bennett Drain actually closed on April 8th. I believe there's 11 bids, if I counted correctly. So we had 11 bids received. The estimate on this drain, I guess our book price is $46,600, so that's the construction. The lowest tender that came in was from Hannah and Hamilton of $34,525. So you see we have 11 bids ranging from 34 to 68. But we have, I would say, some very competitive bids on this project. Now there is a road bore on this, and the township of both of them will receive a reduction. The total estimate is about 75%. And that is recognized in the road costs as well. So there'll be approximately $5,000 savings, but that's split between. Sorry. But yes, we worked with Hannah and Hamilton before. They did lots of maintenance projects in Perth South, but they are typically a contractor firm. I would say they're on the list of, so they did lots of projects in North Perth, but I know Mr. Richardson has used them for maintenance projects in this municipality as well.
Yeah, so I have prepared a resolution, because the, tender, wasn't going to be released until we knew there were no, appeals.
Okay. So recommendation now that we accept Henny and Hamilton Construction at the price of $34,525.50. Moved by Councillor Corvus, seconded by Deputy Mayor Wilhelm. All those in favor? Carried.
Thank you.
All right, so we're moving on to 7.2, the Court of Revision for the Spargillia drain. This is second sitting. Court of Revision members are Deputy Mayor Robert Wilhelm, Councillor Jim Vanessa, and Councillor John Mitchell. Recommendation that council does recess at 6:55 p.m. in order to hold a second sitting of the Court of Revision for the Spargillia drain. Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Jeff Bell. All those in favor? Carried. The floor is yours.
Thank you. We will reconvene the Court of Revision for the Scargilia drain. The engineer's report is dated December 20th, 2024, and the engineers are Street Associates. We'll once again ask Brandon to give us a brief outline of the work, just to refresh everyone.
So, tonight's the Scargilia drain. We've had some meetings on this one. So this is an open ditch drain. It's a drain enclosure and it's a culvert replacement under Perth Road 128, which the people of St. Mary's call James Street. We have an open ditch improvement with a culvert being installed in Great Lakes Poultry, which is downstream. There's also some ditch clean out happening, some minor ditch relocation adjacent to the road. We are then replacing a culvert underneath Perth Road 128 with a new concrete box culvert designed to handle a 250-year event. We are then enclosing upstream of that box culvert up to the Scargilia property, so between Thames Holdings Limited and what I call Jacob's Liquidations. That drain's being enclosed at those two owners' request up to the original Scargilia drain, which I believe is from the 80s. So we have three major components on this drain, which we went through the last quarter revision. At the last quarter revision, there were some changes made. So those new numbers were handed out and Lizette's mailed them to all the watershed. And since then, we've received, I believe, 2 additional appeals. I don't know, was that want to read the appeals or just want me to speak to them?
I included them in the package, so I'm not reading this time.
You're not gonna catch it. Does it matter which one we go through first?
No.
So the first one we have, I'm gonna say is from Express Signs. This time Express Signs has sent in a letter from a lawyer. As well as they've included their stormwater management report from the development of their site. So, in that, if you go through it, I believe it's 112 pages. It shows you the stormwater management that was installed on their property and all the other features. Now, we do have a letter here from a lawyer. It's from 80 to Block Portsmouth. For representing, and I believe this landowner is here. Yeah. So, I have some comments to respond to the letter. I know everyone is aware, the Court of Revision is aware this site was raised. There's some comments in the letter which I would say there's not maybe misleading, but there's some comments made towards the timing of the drain and why the work wasn't done sooner. And just to give council a refresher, because it says that a lot of these works were completed in November, December of 2023, they're going to go through this. This drain was originally petitioned for by Perth South Road. So the owners did not push this. Ken Bettle signed the petition in September. September 5th of 2023, we were appointed September 6th, 2023, your council meeting. I had an on-site meeting on October 10th of 2023, originally on this drain, and at that time, either of these buildings were constructed. We then had a preliminary meeting on this project, May 28th of 2024. After the meeting of October 10th, we did receive an additional request for the drain enclosure. So I know these projects take time, but we did receive an additional request, which changed the scope. Originally, the scope was to replace the culvert. We then received the drain enclosure request at that time. We then did receive a registered letter from this landowner, Express Signs. June 18, 2024, saying they weren't interested in the project proceeding, which further delayed my report being issued till that was also addressed. I believe that letter was then withdrawn a month after that. So that gives you some history on why it took the report to come to fruition in about a year. And as you are all aware, we also have a large gas main being relocated on Perth Road 128 in conjunction of the works. When you look at their stormwater management, I don't know, I'm doubting you've all read the 112-page report. So there's a small pond installed at the back of that property. Now, one thing we need to understand, we're filling this drain in to an agricultural standard, not a storm sewer standard. So I'm filling it in with a 50-millimeter design, so it takes 50 millimeters of rain in 24 hours. So that drain has a capacity of, in rough numbers, of 680 liters per second. So that's what serves the entire watershed, which includes land from our friends in Zork. So I have that written down. There's 112 hectares that serves. Express Signs owns 1.42, I wrote down here, 1.42, I believe, hectares. Their release rate on their stormwater management facility is 60 liters a second. So it's 10% of the drain capacity of the drain being enclosed. Because there's a lot of comments in their lawyer's letter about their water being insignificant. And they have no benefit to the project, nor do they contribute because they've dealt with their stormwater. That's true, they've dealt with it. And they've used 10% capacity of that drain. There's also lands south of this property, which are now, I would say, drainage landlocked. So if you were to develop the property south, you need to get the main Skagray drain. And these landowners are being charged. We charge them on the upsizing of the culvert. One is a Canada Inc. property and the other one is an Ontario Inc. property, as well as your unnamed road allowance. In order to develop those properties, we would then need an outlet to the Skagray drain, which we don't have a direct connection to. The property of Thames Holding has been raised. It's been developed. Ken Bettles has indicated there was an easement put at the back of these properties for drainage, 10 meters wide. When you look at that easement, there's a hydro tower in the middle of it. So it's not simple to get access to the drain. The people on the drain, yes, they have access to it. The adjacent properties do not, but they are still contributing to paying for the culvert. They're not paying for the enclosure, but they're paying for the culvert downstream. The enclosure itself, one thing it does do, it does limit the capacity to a 50 mil design. There's relief overflow if the drain overtops as a swale. Typically, when you develop in a rural situation, our firm takes the stance is you can only release up to the capacity of the drain because we don't want to flood your neighbors out. Those are some of the comments. It's just, I'm sure you guys have read through the letter and I can happy to answer any more questions if there is to that, but that's just some comments I originally have. I don't know if we have questions on that one, or do you want me to go through the other one from Mr. Cook? Or does that owner want to speak?
Well, if you want to give a brief outline of Mr. Cook's, and then we'll see if either property owner wants to speak in.
So Mr. Cook is the owner of this, what I have labeled as Sturgillia Farm. I believe he's now the owner. I'm sure you guys have read his appeal. He sent it via email. I believe he's here as well. So essentially, reading this, I'm not sure Mr. Cook understood originally that his property was partially zoned in lot 12 light industrial. I think he has more recently learned this. This property is currently farmed. I think his intention is to currently or continue farming it, but other than that, I can't really speak to the assessment. So this assessment or the increase in assessment was put on by the Court of Revision. I originally assessed them for the different drain components, not the culvert upsizing per se, so I can't comment on that. But yeah, maybe he can provide more input as he's here.
Okay, thank you. Would either of the property owners care to make some comments? Yes, sir, please come up and state your name.
I stand up for my city.
You're my chair.
Hello, my name is David Cook, and I was given the farm by my uncle Granville Scarillia. The drain named after him. I'm current owner for about 2 years now. And he has had that land for over 40 years. He grew up in St. Mary's, his family did. They had a food market store in St. Mary's, and later he moved to Stratford and then to London. Did everybody read the letter that I sent him, so I don't have to go over any of that? If you don't mind, that's okay. So I have a few questions to ask, and should you note that maybe will say something or did say something that might not be absolutely 100% correct. I ask your forgiveness to give me a little leeway because I don't know too much, since getting the farm. So as I stated, the farm has been serviced by the same farmer for 40 years. That's Augustine Walsh, that you may know, he's with me tonight. But one of the questions I have is, does anybody know when the property was designated light industrial or industrial? Like, is there a year? Was it 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago? That might make a bit of a difference.
We could find that out, but I would guess over 20 years.
You think so? Okay.
But we can find that out for sure.
Yes. Okay, and who would have designated this industrial? Is it a group of people, one person, whole bunch?
Through the chair, it would have been designated by the county in their official plan. That would be my expectation.
Okay. And when you say my county, are you referring to this group?
Perth County, no, Perth County is comprised of, 4 lower tier municipalities.
Oh, yes,
Perth South is one of them.
right.
And then there's the county, which is the overarching higher level of government. So Perth County is a 2-tier government. The county is the higher order. This body here is one of the 4 lower orders.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so the property in question, there's 26 acres involved there that have been designated M2-6, sort of general industrial. And the width of it is 674 feet at the top and the bottom, but I don't know the length of it, but it adds up to 26 acres. I have no intention to change the zoning from agricultural to industry. I guess neither did my uncle. I know that he said to me that I wanted to be kept agricultural after you inherited. And I want you to deal with the same farmer I've been dealing with for 40 years. And I said, yes, I agree. I have no intentions of doing that. As you may not know, I am now crop sharing with, if I could say Augustine, if you know him. And so the Scrivelia drain plans were approved in 1987 and were began. And the majority of the cost, I understand, was bared by my uncle, Randall Scrivelia. And I don't know if any other property owners along James Street were involved in or around that neck of the woods, I guess, were involved in contributing any financial assistance. So my questions are a little bit mixed up, but I was wondering how the estimate for the drain goes from 6,000 to 9,000. Now the 6,000 I think was with a benefit or breaks from the county that brought it down to 6, but then with the discount. But more importantly, I wanted to know like who bumped it up to 38,000 plus, it's 38 or something like that.
That would have been this quarter revision.
This part, okay. And is there a special formula you use, or you just debate among yourselves, or see what's fair or not, or is there, can I ask that question?
Yeah, we try and work out what's fair, and after hearing your appeal, what we'll do is we'll go in and discuss. And then at that appropriate time, we will come out with our verdict and let you know.
Okay, sir, thank you. So my uncle paid for the drain, or most of the drain. Now, all the work, as I understand, is like downstream from the drain. So I believe that I do not benefit particularly by the work that is going to be done on this drain. It would appear that people on James Street benefit the most from having this drain enlarged or continued under construction on it. There does not appear to be any benefits or apparent benefits for me at this time. So I guess one of the question is, why does the engineer, I guess it's this gentleman, Brandon, I believe, estimated at 9,000, then you obviously must have disagreed with the assessment that he made, and so you upped it a little bit, or more than a little bit, up to 38. So my question then is, why do I have to pay the most? I may have the bigger piece of land, but the people with the smaller pieces seem to benefit much more than I do. Should it not be the greater the benefit, the more you should contribute to the cost of the drain? And like I said earlier, if any of or some of these people paid for the Scrivelia drain in 1978, I think my uncle absorbed most of the costs, and I can't confirm if they did or not. So let's a little go back to the engineering's costing, because that is why I feel that is why you hired him in the first place, as I understand it, to help you come up with a fair pricing for all the contributors that have to contribute to the drain. I mean, I want to be fair, but to be quite honest with you, I don't want to be taken advantage of any more than anyone else. So I need relief, and you may say, oh, sir, you've got a nice piece of land and you're so rich. Well, I'm not rich. That land is going to stay there. I get a little bit of money from crop sharing, but I can't put my hand in my pocket and come up with $40,000. It's just, I just don't have it right now. So I'm not crying poor, but I'm saying I don't have that money, even though I own this tract of land, because I'm not going to try and not ever sell it and keep Augustine farming it. What I really don't understand is, if the township wants the 20 acres, 26 acres to be industrial, why should they not pay more instead of me paying what I think is their share when I don't ever want the land designated industrial. So I'm not complaining, I'm just putting a question out there. You made it industrial and now you put this drain in and now I have to pay more because my 26 acres is industrial. So I'm just a bit perplexed on that one. So my uncle's wishes were that I keep farming it and never turn it into an industrial. And my last point, if I may, in order to access this industrial 26 acres, you can come onto our farm off of Highway 7 and drive across the field and get to this 26 acres. Now, I understand that the township has offered me or made what's the word I'm looking for? It made provisions to have a narrow piece of property coming from James Street onto that 26 acres. So if it was ever developed, industrial, put up whatever they put up on industrial property, I would have to fix that road in there. Right now, I understand it's a field. You couldn't drive a truck or anything through it, as I understand it. So if I wanted to develop that, I think, I could be wrong, but I don't think the township is going to say, oh, we'll put that road in for you to your property. I don't know. I'm not saying you would or not. I don't know. I think I would have to absorb the cost. So on that 26 acres, even while the drain goes in, etc., I would need to build a road. There's no water there now. There's no hydro there now. There's no sewage there now. And I would have to incur the cost of bringing all that in to the 26 acres industrial and then build a road out to St. James's. So when all said and done, I've tried my best to tell you how this is affecting me, particularly financially. And I will never turn it into industrial, the other 97 acres, or excuse me, 71.45 acres. We'll always have Augustine doing that as a crop share. And maybe someday, hopefully not soon, I would pass it on to my son when I go over to the great beyond again, but we're not rushing that. So I want to thank you very much for your tolerance and listening to me. And as I said, I try to present to you something as best I know it, but because I'm not a resident in this community per se, I don't know the ins and outs and everything, but thank you once again. Unless
No
you have
problem,
some
and,
questions for me. Or...
I don't have any questions. I don't know if the other.
No,
Okay.
okay, well,
Yeah,
thank
and
you very much.
we'll consider your comments. Once we see if anyone else has comments, and then we'll go in recess.
And I wait for you after you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Come on.
Mark Giesbrecht. Sorry, first of all, I'd like to apologize for the inaccuracies in the letter that the lawyer sent. It was my responsibility to check those numbers and I didn't. It wasn't the right time to fall apart like it did. Having said that, I appreciate all that you guys have done for us throughout this process. I know it's been a real hassle, especially with the Conservation Authority slowing stuff down and being the way they are. Brandon mentioned that our outflow is 10% of the tile. And then the addition, the overland swale is an additional, that basically doubles it. Ideally, is your policy.
So your 2-year release or your pipes release is approximately 10% of the capacity of the enclosure.
Okay,
Okay, period. So at a larger storm event, it's expected to overtop. Now,
Uh-huh.
your entire site is higher than obviously the drain, because site's been raised, I believe. Some of you have been out there. But that's because when you do stormwater management, they do a pre to post situation. And they're looking at a 2-year design level, whereas on the agricultural drainage side, a 2-year design is much higher than what we are proposing for the enclosure and upstream. So for instance, in the Skagrillia property or Mr. Cook's property, that's an existing municipal drain that was constructed in the 80s. It has even less capacity than what we are proposing.
Okay. So that's the enclosures and we're on board for the 50% of that. What, do you know what the flow is under the road? Like, I'm just curious what the percentage is for the updated.
So the flow under the road is much larger, but that is for a 250-year event, so I can look up that number if we.
Well, I'm just curious what our percentage is for under the road part, because that's the part that we're objecting to is the under the road part, not the enclosure part.
Yes,
So,
so the way, guess how do I word, the way originally the report was issued was it was done on an acreage basis for the properties on per program level. The Court of Revision then gave relief to some of those properties. And I believe we've incurred some extra costs on the road allowance, and then some of the costs was sent over to Mr. Cook's. So that was done by the Court of Revision in trying to alleviate some of the. But the one thing when I look at your property and I look at the Witzel Dice report. The property south of you will still need an outlet to Skagrillia drain. And they will need to somehow get a pipe across the property.
yeah, that's my understanding as well. However, I don't think they will need to build up to the level that we're at.
Not if the report is issued.
If the culvert goes in.
Yes.
Yeah.
That being said, the properties that have been raised, both of them. That water has been displaced. And it then pushes more on to adjacent. So. Your property isn't affecting so many people currently as it's not developed. I know BSC, for instance, sees. More damage than they used to due to both those properties being raised, as well as the Skagrillia property. Or Mr. Cook's property will see it as well, though it's agricultural, so we're not so concerned, but. They'll see elevated flooding on that, and we kind of went through that at the last meeting with the color coded maps.
It's about all.
Good, thanks, Mark. Does anyone have any questions for Mark? Okay.
Mark, how can you, I have so many ideas flying around, but how can you get the water from south on that landlocked part?
We're going to continue on with our Court of Revision. If you have a conversation with Mark, by all means, you're welcome to go out in any room there, and we'll, if we have no questions from the Court of Revision, we'll recess. We'll discuss comments that have been made. Yeah. Board of Revision will reconvene and, we have decided not to change, the assessment as it's been printed lately. And, this is how we came up with that. This is a very complicated drain that has many different factors playing a role into the costing of the drain. The Stantec report was an important part that encouraged the current flood elevation, which lowered the floodplain by a little over 1 meter. This requires the culvert under Perth Road 120A, James Street South, to be upsized. Perth County pays for the same size pipe, which is a 1.5 meter CSP pipe. And the replacement culvert proposed is a 3 meter by 2.7 meters. And that leaves a balance of about $160,000 to be distributed among the rest of the property owners. We looked at all property owners in the M2-6 zoned industrial. And all the property owners, including along Perth Road 120A, will continue to receive the benefit of the upsizing of the culvert. This will reduce the potential of the future flooding for the current property owners. We have included the township of Perth South for $14,820, as down the road they will receive benefit from taxes in the new development. We also included Mr. Cook's property, about 26 acres of industrial land in the assessment. We have reduced the per acre charge, as he will have to pay for the development, for the infrastructure to develop the lands in the future. Mr. Cook is being assessed about 10% per acre in comparison to the properties on James Street South. That is what we've came up with, and that's the reasoning. So we will move on, and I will ask the engineer for comments on moving forward.
So, the next step on this project will be Lizette will send in information out from the decision of this quarter revision, as well as I believe we will put the drain out for tender after the appeal window has passed, which I believe is 30 days from the mailing.
I thought it was 21, but I don't know.
And
I don't often get this one, so.
so as well as Ken Bettles knows, there is we will proceed with the relocation of the gas main, which Enbridge is working towards with the county.
Okay. With that.
Oh.
Yes.
So if the Board of Revision could pass a resolution to adopt the
Okay.
schedule that was circulated with the revised schedule that you had circulated.
Okay, can I have a mover and a seconder to adopt the revised assessment? Paul, second by Jim, all in favor? Carry. Okay,
Then we can adjourn.
with that, motion to adjourn the Court of Revision. Moved by Jim, second by Paul, all in favor? Carry, thank you.
All right, we can move on. We have the curriculum, whatever, our reading presentation, so we're at 7.4 for Watson and Associates, the development charges overview. Welcome.
Before we get started, I just wanted to explain that last year and since the project in Stephenville has been moving along, there's been some discussion amongst council members and staff about development charges, what they are, what they can charge, who pays them. And last year during the budget discussions, there was some direction to staff to make some effort to provide some more information to the council. So Navreet from Watson has come.
Excuse me, sorry, excuse me, excuse me, you guys, if you could just take it outdoors, that would be great. Thank you so much, appreciate that,
Sorry.
thank you.
Thanks, Your Worship. So, so Navreet has come, to basically give you backgrounder on, development charges. Watson's is one of a handful of, consulting firms in the province that does this type of work. Is well known for its expertise. Navreet has agreed to come and basically give you all, a bit of a workshop on what development charges are at no cost to us, thankfully. And at the end of the day, it's really just an opportunity for council to receive for information this report. And if the council elect at some point in the future to drill down further on development charges, you'll have a little bit of a better starting spot. Thank you, Navreet.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Pleasure to be here before council today. My name is Navreet Baines. I'm a senior project coordinator at Watson and Associates. So like Brandon mentioned, our firm specializes in development charges. We've undertaken over 1/2 of the development charge studies for municipalities in Ontario that have these charges. More broadly, we've also undertaken these charges across Canada in provinces such as British Columbia, Manitoba, and Brunswick. So we have a very good perspective of development charges and how they're utilized across the country. So yeah, I'm here before council today to provide an overview of development charges, what they are. I'll touch on the legislative context and some of the policy considerations and how they could potentially assist the township in funding growth-related costs. Next slide, please. So just to provide a brief agenda, we'll start off with an overview of development charges and what they are. And then we'll briefly touch on the legislative authority, which is the Development Charges Act. I'll then speak to some of the policy considerations and exemptions. And then from there, we'll get into some of the specifics of if the township does decide to pursue development charges, what potential services could be considered, and additionally, what some of your neighboring municipalities currently charge with respect to these fees. I'll then be happy to answer any questions that you may have to close the presentation off for the evening. And then next slide again, please. So at a very high level, development charges are in place to recover the capital costs associated with both residential and non-residential growth within a municipality. And excuse me, the capital costs are in addition to those more localized costs that a developer would be required to construct as part of the subdivision. So those more localized roads, water mains, sewers, sidewalks that a developer would be required to construct. Those would be considered direct developer responsibility. And then anything over and above that, so works that more broadly benefit a broader area or a municipality as a whole, those could be included in a development charge. And like I said, municipalities are empowered to impose these charges through the Development Charges Act, which provides all the rules and regulations and is supported by case law through the OLT as well. And development charges are calculated and payable at the time of issuance of a building permit. Next slide, please. So this is just a slide to kind of highlight the municipal financial planning framework and how planning, engineering, and finance are all required for the establishment of the development charge. So at the top, we start off with the official plan, which really sets out the growth and development in a municipality or a county. So that's where planning comes in. And then in the second step, we need to identify the capital needs to support that growth. That's where the master plans come in and the engineering and their consultants would develop a master plan. And then finally, to put all the pieces together, we'll need to understand how to fund those capital costs to support that growth. And that's where development charges would come into play. Next slide, please. And so basically there's a need to service new growth when new users come online. And there's really two choices that council has to make. So you could either fund those investments through development charges. And the principle of development charges is that growth should pay for growth. So there's development charges, and then if those aren't utilized, then those costs would need to be funded by your existing community through rates, taxes, and reserves. So it's really a decision and continuum that, that council has the decision of. So quite simply, the development charge calculation can be boiled down to this. So the denominator of the calculation is the residential and non-residential growth within a municipality. The numerator is the cost of the infrastructure required to accommodate that growth. So we divide those two into each other to come up with the development charge, and that is provided on a per unit basis for residential growth and on a per square foot basis for non-residential growth. And the Development Charges Act prescribes the services that are DC eligible, so this provides all those services. There's other things that we can include as a class of DC eligible services, so growth studies and public works, those can also be included. In addition, the development charges background study, that can also be included, so if the township were to decide to pursue a development charge, the cost of that study can be funded through development charges. So really, these are the services that are available, but obviously the township doesn't provide for all of these, so if there was to be a decision to pursue development charges, we would go through these and decide which services would be included. So there's a detailed calculation that must be undertaken as part of the development charge, and that's prescribed by the legislation. And this is a service standard calculation, which really sets that upper ceiling on how much the municipality can impose with respect to development charges. And basically, this boils down to the average level of service provided over the past 15 years. You cannot impose a higher level of service than that on new development. This requires a consideration of both quantity and quality measures, and I'll kind of identify what that is on the next slide, but really what this involves is a review of capital inventories in detail over the past 15 years. And we're required to undertake this calculation for all services except for water, wastewater, and storm, which have overriding provincial legislation. And then transit has a forward-looking service standard. So this is a hypothetical example of how we undertake the service standard calculation. So on the left-hand side would be all of the fire stations. So sorry, this is for fire. So we would list out all the fire stations in a municipality, and then we'd identify the total square footage in each individual year, and then we'd sum those up to come up with the total square footage provided. We'd then divide that by the population in each individual year to come up with a per capita standard. So what this is telling us is that in the year 2022, there's about 0.84 square feet fire facility space provided per capita. The Development Charges Act, like I said, requires us to look at the average over the past 15 years, and that's 1.217, which is provided in that box at the bottom. So that's the quantity standard. Then we must take a look at the quality standard as well, which takes into account the replacement costs. So we do the exact same calculation to come up with that level of investment. And what we do is we multiply that out by the forecasted population to come up with that eligible amount you see at the bottom, 4.5 million. So that provides us the upper ceiling on which development charges can be imposed. So please. This is just the calculation of the quality standard, just for your reference. Go to the next slide. So once we have that upper ceiling established, we can then look forward to the capital costs that can potentially be included in a development charge. So as per the Act, you can include the cost for land, any buildings, facilities, structures, equipment, vehicles. If any of these components are being leased, we can include the capital component. If there's any debt that's being issued for any of these projects, we can include the interest costs related to that. And then we can also use any planning horizon for future capital needs. Just depends on how accurately we can forecast out those capital needs. Next slide, please. And then there's a couple capital costs we can include. We can't include parkland acquisition, any vehicles and equipment with an average useful life of less than 7 years. And then certain computer equipment, that's not integral to the delivery of the service. So like I kind of touched on briefly at the beginning of the presentation, there are things that are the responsibility of the developer to construct, and then there's what we could include in DC. So as part of our studies that we utilize to support a DC bylaw, we include what's called a local service policy, which really formalizes what a developer is responsible to construct, and then what's included in the DC. So we look at all these various components as part of this local service policy. And then on the next slide, that just shows an example of how we could potentially allocate the cost between the developer as a local service and then what could be included as a development charge. So a lot of those more broader components when it comes to these services. So just to put everything together, this is the methodology that we're required to follow in calculating a DC. So the first step is we identify the amount, type, and location of growth. We then identify the servicing needs to accommodate that growth and the capital costs. And then we have to make a series of deductions. So any grants, any portion of the costs that relate to the existing community. So if we're upsizing a water main, the cost related to the replacement of the existing water main would be a benefit to existing development. We'd have to deduct that off the costs, but the costs related to the upsizing would be included in the development charge. We then have to make a deduction for any of the amounts in excess of that service standard calculation that we undertook, and then any DC reserve funds. And that comes up with the net cost, which we then allocate between res and non-res benefit, and then we divide that by the respective growth to calculate the DC. Slide. So just to briefly touch on the legislation, development charges have been in place in some form or another since the 1950s. Largely they remain consistent, but you can see in the past couple of years, there have been a number of changes to the legislation. It just makes our job a little more interesting, but there has been a lot of changes to the legislation recently. Some positive, mostly negative to be honest, but we can quickly walk through some of those changes. So I won't go into too much detail here, but basically there's been some recent changes to the legislation related to introducing installment payments, introducing DC rate freezes for site plan and zoning bylaw amendment applications. That list of eligible services that I provided at the beginning of the presentation, that's a new introduction to the legislation. There's been new exemptions added, so for universities, and then additional reporting requirements as well. Bill 23, which a lot of you may know of, provided for a lot of changes to the DC legislation. It added a number of exemptions that are required for the DC. So any of these developments are not required to pay a development charge. There's discounts for rental housing, municipally provided housing has been removed as an eligible DC service. There were a couple changes, those ones highlighted in orange, which were walked back. They were introduced, but they were walked back through a subsequent legislation, Bill 185. So those are no longer needed to be considered. And then the last couple of components are more administrative in nature. Bill 134 provided for a revised definition for what constitutes affordable as part of that mandatory exemption. So that's based on income levels relative to average market rent or average purchase price. And then Bill 185 is the most recent change, which walked back some of those more negative components of Bill 23. So there was a phase-in of charges that's been walked back. And then studies which were previously included, and then Bill 23 took them out, Bill 185 brought them back in. And then a couple of other minor administrative components. So like I touched on, the Development Charges Act requires a number of mandatory DC exemptions and discounts. So all of these developments are not required to pay development charges. That's mandatory. So any of these would not be required to pay a DC. And then in addition to mandatory exemptions, there's also discretionary exemptions that municipalities can provide. So municipalities can decide to exempt any type of development. So some of the more common ones are places of worship, bona fide farms, industrial development, downtown developments and hospitals. So those are some of the more common ones, but really you could exempt any type of development. Next slide, please. And then again. So just to hone in on the township and what could potentially be included in the development charge. So any of these services really could be considered if there are capital needs that are arising as a result of growth. Those could be considered for these services. Those could be reviewed, and if there are growth-related capital costs, those could be recovered for through development charges. And then next slide. And yeah. So just to provide some context as to the development charges in nearby municipalities and what's being charged. So pretty much all of the municipalities, actually all of the municipalities in Perth County are currently charging development charges. And including St. Mary's and Stratford. The development charges per single detached unit vary anywhere on the low end for Perth East at $11,779 per unit. And then those go all the way up to $27,778 per single detached unit in North Perth. With development charges, there's often a concern of affordability and whether development charges impact affordability. So what we like to do is take a look at what the DC is relative to the average new house price. And within this area, it ranges from about 2 to 5% of the average sales price. Across the country, what we typically see is about 8 to 10%. So you can see that within this area, the DC rates are well below that average. Next slide, please. So yeah, that includes, that includes the presentation for tonight. I'd be happy to answer the questions.
Any questions from the floor? Councilor Corbett.
So there would be there possibly could be level of charges, like a subdivision versus a one lot off in the country that puts their own well and septic in. That I know we still need the services of, you know, snow plowing and police and fire and everything, but would you have different levels of charges based on the services that are required, or is it kind of across the board that everybody pays the same?
Through the mayor, so when it comes to rural properties that aren't connected to water or wastewater, we typically differentiate the charge. So if they're not connected to those services, they wouldn't be subject to that charge. They'd be subject to those, like you said, like roads, plowing, fire facilities, police.
Any other questions from the floor? Councilor Vaness?
Are any of the Perth County municipalities charging for their agriculture buildings?
That I would have to get back to you on.
I know some of the farther out municipalities are here.
It's a common exemption that we do see. I just have to double check the bylaws to confirm that.
That's just, it'd be made by the local council, that is exemption?
Yeah.
So that can be rescinded at any time also.
You'd have to make an amendment to the bylaw, but yes, you could adjust that exemption.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other further questions? All right, seeing none, thank you for your presentation. It was good, I learned about it. I know your council has some.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming. So I have a recommendation that the presentation from Watson and Associates regarding development targets be received for information. Moved by Deputy Mayor Wilhelm, second by Councilor Corbett. All those in favor? Carried. We are at item 8, reports. There are public works.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Orr. Good evening. The first report is my update report. I've been working on some tenders. We had a I think it was a really good, tour of the Shakespeare wastewater treatment plant, that a lot of council was able to make. I think that, system looked pretty good. I think it kind of helped show, what is being proposed for Aurora and City area. So, the other thing on here is, just, I guess, a bit of an update for anybody who wasn't aware. Perth County, the county council, they had received a, report from an engineer titled Perth County Road Rationalization Plan. And the county is going through a bit of a process, and this is one of the steps, and I think there's future steps gonna be required. But the initial report is recommending they consider, that the county considers uploading Whalen Line, Lorne Ave, and Alone Ave. And then I'll call it downloading Perth Road 151 to Perth South. Council a while ago had requested some roads be considered as part of that report, and some of the other roads that were considered weren't in the report. They're in the report, but they weren't recommended for any change as now. I think we had line 32, some of the roads around Stratford that were busier. To be included in that, they were, and they've gone through their process, and so now that they've received this report, I think there'll be likely another report coming back to Perth County Council that goes through now the process to more detail on uploading, downloading. The consultant is expected to bring a presentation to this council, all the local councils as well. So I don't know when the date of that is, but I think that's one of the next things. So hopefully we see them here soon, that engineering part. So that's just some stuff off my update. If anybody has any questions, we have an answer.
Any questions for Ken, Deputy Mayor Whitmore?
I just see that you've met with MTO on South Huron on speed zone. Did you notify Mr. Gooch that you were successful in having a meeting with the MTO and that it is progressing forward, or can someone?
Not that I know of, we just had to.
Yeah, we just heard it, but I can let him know.
Great, thank you.
Councilor Kirby?
In the break, I asked Ken a few questions about, the cost per kilometer on pavement of a gravel road, and, I wonder if we could have a report sometime and, you know, maybe how much gravel road we have and excluding the winter roads. Just curiosity on how much it would cost per kilometer, on an average, so. Could bring that forward sometime, there's no rush.
All right, any other questions for Ken? Seeing none, I have a recommendation that the Director of Public Works of Police be received the information. Moved by Councillor Jeff Bell, second by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? Carried. We're at the Drainage Superintendent report. Ken?
Yes, thank you. The next report is Scott's update report. And there's been, you know, a lot of discussion on different drains. He's got quite a bit of stuff going on. If anybody has any questions on anything, try and answer.
Any questions regarding the drainage work? Am I going too fast? No, okay. So recommendation that the drainage superintendent update report be received for information, not refused. Received for information, moved by Councillor Corley, second by Deputy Mayor Wilhelm. All those in favor, carried. We are at 8.2, Deputy CAO Treasurer Tracy. You're got the floor. Actually, do you want me to put the council on the floor? Would you and then do that?
Yeah, that's fine, yeah.
Okay, so I have a recommendation with the accounts, that the accounts payable listed April 9th, 2025 for the period of March 27th to April 9th in the amount of $803,257. 0.15 be approved. Moved by Councillor Jim Bass, second by Councillor Jeff Bell. All those in favor? Carried. Well, let's actually wait until we get them on the floor. They're on the floor. That's not. Any questions for Tracy regarding all the accounts? do you want to touch base about the police increase?
That's actually in my monthly report that that question was brought up.
We can come back to it.
Last week, yeah, it doesn't matter, but you know, just for the public, because it was asked, and the monthly increase is $10,811, $129,731 annually, so we have like a 20% increase for policing going into 2025.
And we had no indication of what was happening?
Yeah.
And I didn't have an indication of what was happening, Councillor Corby?
I would ask our representatives to maybe, I might be all wet on this, but I don't see our Stratford police in the rural gravel roads that much as they did in the first 2 or 3 years. So I might be all wrong on that, but I know they're very good to answer to, if we have problems somewhere in the community, they look after it and they monitor it, but I just don't see them in the rural country anymore, and I just wondered if our service has changed. Because our costs are going up, and now I haven't seen them this year because I go to Lucan a lot, but I would see them parked on number 7 and speed traps, where my opinion is it might be better in Kirkton, Abington, or St. Paul. So I'm just questioning, I might be all wrong, but maybe Bob and Jim can ask if our service has changed, or because it was really good compared to what we were getting in the previous, so maybe you can find out for us.
Councillor Vanessa?
I was wondering, I'm on the police committee, but I was wondering if we could ask either Chief Skinner or Deputy Chief Foster to come to council itself and explain the increase. I don't believe that we were given any update at all. I know at the last CPAC meeting, they mentioned they were gonna meet with Stratford. They did not give us any indication at all of what the increase was gonna be, and suddenly we're thrown with a 20% plus increase. There's no explanation. I think we should ask them to come to the council.
I agree.
I'd like to make that motion, if that's what it takes.
We need a motion? Or not just one?
It doesn't.
Question with police too, or we have to have the car every 3 years, we have to upgrade the car. I'd like to know what happens with the past car. Do we sell it on gov deals, or is it ours? What is it? So that's just, maybe we can bring that up at the police meeting as well. Councillor Carbon?
Should we save our questions for when he comes here, or I guess it can be asked at the next meeting? Okay.
Any other questions regarding the accounts, Councillor Vanessa?
Just a question here. There's quite a few charges here for garbage collections and recycling through Blue Water. My understanding is that whole, the way we deal with that is gonna change in June or July this year. Is am I correct, or am I incorrect in that?
Through the mayor, the change is going to be related to how the costs of those services are recovered.
Okay.
I'm not sure what charges you're seeing on the accounts.
There's 3 or 4 charges here for 3,500, 3,700. March disposal, electrical disposal, waste, recycling.
Yeah, I know what those are, and it's kind of related to the description, so, disposal is they collect wastes from the residents, and then there's, they take the waste and dispose of it at a commercial landfill site, so we pay the tipping fee for that, and then there's costs for the collection. That gets divided up between recycling collection and waste collection, and then there's another component that is for recycling, the recycling program and the facility that they run at their end. And I'm not aware of any changes that are happening to our invoicing. I think that's gonna be our invoicing for the current year. Monthly invoices.
I thought it was going to, the people who create the product, they were gonna pay it, not the end user.
For some of the recycling costs, but
Yes.
I'm not sure, I thought that was kind of built into the price, but I could be wrong.
It is for some of the recycling through the mayor, and I believe it's for, might be for commercial properties. But I can do a bit of legwork, I can read it.
Yep.
Councilor Martin?
I was just gonna say, I think that came in last year, we saw a significant reduction in our recycling costs with the user creation. So this is significantly less than what we used to pay for recycling.
Any other questions regarding the accounts? Okay, so, all those in favor? Eric, you okay? Okay, good. Okay, report B for the 2025 annual repayment limit. Tracy?
Thank you. Yeah, so this is, an annual report that is sent to, municipalities after the FIR is finalized, the financial information return. It just, there's limits on what, a municipality can raise for principal and interest charges. And, so the debt limit for Perth South right now is 1.4 million, or, yeah, 1.4 million, which obviously we're not going to need. But I think going into the future that maybe we should have a debt management policy that council could set, you know, we will never go above 50% of what our ARL is or something along those lines. But this report is just for information, but I do think a debt management policy is probably in order for stuff like this. Any questions?
We need to make a motion to ask Tracy to come up with the debt management policy.
Your worship. Tracy and I have talked about a number of treasury related policies that need to be brought forward that we don't have. That's one of them. We are gonna work on ones that are what we think are the priorities for the treasury.
Okay.
And you'll see them coming to you periodically over time, including a debt management policy.
Okay. No works.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, any questions about the debt management? Seeing none, I have a recommendation that the Council of Perth South receives the report from the Deputy CAO Treasurer titled 2025 Annual Repayment Limit, ARL, dated April 15th, 2025 for information. All those moved by Deputy Mayor Wilhelm, seconded by Councilor Corby. All those in favor? Good. Can you tell I had some dentist for a All right, we are at report for Deputy CAO Treasurer Report update. You've got the floor.
Thank you. Yeah, so kind of a boring little summary since it was only like 12 days, so. But yeah, so already answered that question on the account listing from the previous meeting. A lot of March was spent getting access to banking and other stuff, so worked on the budget and working on cleaning up the ledger accounts in preparation for the year end. So yeah, so wasn't a lot to put in there, so. Any questions? I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions on her report? Okay, seeing none, I have a recommendation that the Deputy CAO Treasurer update report be received for information. Moved by Councillor Jeff Bell, seconded by Councillor Vanessa. All those in favor? Carried. Draft capital budget. Or vendor.
Oops. It'd been budgie. Budgie would have been better.
The next time was more fun.
Thank you. So council's being presented with the 2025 draft capital budget. Ideally, the 2026 capital budget will be passed October or November of 2025. I know we're really late getting this going. But capital budgeting is a very important piece of our municipal financing. And the capital budget revolves around long-term investments, typically consisting of large projects aimed at betterments, replacement, or expansion of infrastructure and assets. So the capital budget is not just a snapshot in time, yes, in time. Like for 2025, it's forward-looking document that incorporates the 2025 projects and outlines forecast for subsequent years. The budget presented to council contains projects totaling 2.7 million. The funding sources presented are 477 reserves, 671,133 grants, and 1.583,451 tax levy. I am proposing, since I did the presentation though, that we take 100,000 off the tax levy for the office renovations and use the efficiency funding reserve. That was money that was given to all municipalities a few years ago to be used for whatever they wanted. There's no reporting on it, you don't have to report, so there's money in it. So recommending we take 100 off the tax levy for that, and recommending 80,635 drains come off the tax levy and use the drain reserve. That will bring the impact down to 1.4 million, which is a $447,123 decrease from 2024. So it's a 1% decrease of what we put into capital levy last. So some of these projects brought forward to council are through agreements such as the police car. And another one is to be shovel ready for that grant we were awarded, so the Seaburn Road. So those ones are brought forward kind of very importantly. The other projects such as bridges, roads projects are based on road reviews, updated traffic counts, annual maintenance costs, and the vehicle replacement projects are based on age. Moving ahead, I would like to start taking advantage of the citywide asset management software we have. The software will allow us to track life cycle, risk, age, etc. And it's not all going to be on spreadsheets. It's going to be in this asset management software. It's going to age everything out, and it's going to be able to tell council what their life cycle and financial strategy should be. And that's actually supposed to be, that's the final regulation in the asset management plan, and it's actually due July 1st, 2025. But we have to get staff up and using these citywide software, but that'll be my goal to get that in there. And so then when we present to council, it's going to be there in black and white from the software that this is where you should be putting your money, how much you should be putting away in the age and risk of your infrastructure. So if there's any, I know council, for anybody watching, council has had the job sheets for a couple weeks now. So if there's any questions on any of the jobs, we can try and answer them now.
Any questions for Tracy, Deputy Mayor?
I have one, the Rathburn Drain Culvert, Road 142, 0.1 kilometers, which should be north of well line, I believe, but anyways, that's $25,000. And just to let people know, that I guess you'd call the road as a gate across it. Not sure who put it there. Ken's not sure who put it there. But there's probably about 5 vehicles a year uses across this culvert. And we're spending $25,000. So I just, it's a waste of money as far as I'm concerned, but
Remind me where it was.
you know where Fireside runs into well line, it's right beside Benner's. Benner's, right beside there. So it goes into the conservation upper and owns the property in there. And it goes down to Fish Creek, or I'm assuming it goes down to Fish Creek, where there was an old bridge that hasn't been there for I don't know how many years. And like I say, there's very few vehicles use that road, and but a lot of the time the gate's closed.
Should we be closing the road? I was not aware of the date and I was thinking you want to either, or,
Yeah, no, if I
yeah,
can add a little bit, your worship, so, yeah, Bob's right, there's a gate across there, from what I understand, a long time ago, there was a bridge across Fish Creek that collapsed. So they, you know, basically that road doesn't go through anymore. The culvert through the gate does provide access to some farmland in behind. And that would be the vehicles that you're probably talking about, you know, farm equipment, to get the crops in and out. Upper Thames owns some land along Fish Creek as well, and they use that, or they have people, I think, who use that to go back into, I think there's a beehive, or some beehives back there, on their lands, and maybe they might go back to check on stuff once in a while, but yeah, that's the culvert, actually Brandon had identified when he was looking at the Bender drain work, he's the one who said, identified that culvert does need to be replaced based on the condition. So yeah, council didn't want to, we would have to, I expect, give notice to the people who use that, and if we want to consider not replacing the culvert, we'd have to officially close that off somehow, I guess.
are you willing to do that?
I think that we should defer this culvert replacement this year and find out more information. So we can make an informed decision on exactly who uses it, what properties access it, and is there a need for it? And then we should decide whether we should leave the road open or close it. And go from there. But I think we need some more investigation on it.
Any other questions? Councilor Vanessa?
I've got a couple here, on the well, the St. Paul's well, I noticed that, the cost of the well is, from last year, the cost of the engineering is doubled. If there's a reason for that, or what the reason is?
Want, I can try and answer that. Yeah, so that's the St. Paul's well. The cost for the engineering, I don't think that's not a specific direct cost that BM Ross has provided. That was just going through generally the engineering costs as a percentage of the capital costs or construction costs, so it went up on the budget sheets proportionately somewhat based on the increase in costs for the capital work would normally have an increase in the engineering cost, but looking at it, probably a little higher than it needs to be. Because I don't expect the engineering cost would be, the design isn't changing or anything, so I don't expect it would be double, no.
One other question here, looks like we're replacing the tractor, I'm wondering, I was actually very surprised when I got council, we don't own the backhoe. Do you have a price, or could you get a price for an actual backhoe would cost, and I guess more importantly, would you be able to use it, and would it save us? I know different times of the year, we're hiring people to come in with a backhoe, and I'm just telling the Perth South doesn't own one. It just seems like the time to, if we're gonna look at it, we should be looking at that.
Yeah, I can, further to that, I think Councilor Vanessa is right, it would be very helpful for us to have a backhoe. You know, very useful machine, for you know, small ditching and cleanups and stuff that we can do ourselves. I think there would be some benefit to having that. The one thing that this tractor that we have does, get a roadside mower on it. For cutting roadsides, and you wouldn't be able to do that with a backhoe. Cause the tractor that we have is basically an industrial loader that is another model, would have a backhoe built into the back, I think, pretty much, so. That would be the only thing you'd have to figure out, or potentially keep this machine around or something to be able to put the roadside mower on it, so. But I can get a price for on a backhoe for sure.
I'm not sure, the Kubota might be the industrial size, but I have a tractor that we run the backhoe, take it off and put the roadside grass behind, so. It can be done, but bit of a pain in the butt. Might not be the industrial size. Go ahead.
So the tractor that we're replacing does it have much more life in it if we went to a backhoe? Because it'd be like we're buying two different machines to do two different jobs.
I'm not sure on that, it does have some, it's got a hydraulic PTO on it. And it seems to be fairly weak, it's okay for the mower, but I know if we put the snow blower on it. It doesn't have much power to do anything with a snow blower, which is kind of disappointing when you wanna use it, and. Just the transmission, brakes setup. May have some issues,
So it's ready to be replaced.
yeah, it wouldn't have a lot longer life than it would, or you'd be prepared, I don't know, the engine hasn't had any issues lately, but.
So your worship, just to be clear, so there's two important pieces of gear that we use the PTO on that tractor for.
Yeah, the main one is the mower, and lately we've been using the blower less, cause it's not enough to blow banks back on the side of the road or anything. Historically, I've used it for the parking lot around here at the community center, and here. But lately, we've been using the pickup truck with the plow on a bit more, or just the bucket.
So if we didn't have the PTO on this tractor that we're replacing, how would we power those two attachments?
Yeah, we'd have to,
We wouldn't,
we wouldn't be able to, yeah.
so we need to decide what the priority is.
If this was a farm track, quite honestly, $4,700 is not a lot of hours. I wouldn't be scared of buying a tractor, like, to use all the time with that many hours. If it has a PTO problem, we can certainly find out what it would cost to get that fixed.
Yeah, that could be, that could be.
Then we have a little more information.
So did it run snow blower previously, with no problem, and it's just developed an issue, or?
No, since I've tried using it, it's never run the snowboard very good at all. Like a light snow it can, but once you get into heavier wet stuff, it doesn't have the speed or.
Are we oversizing the snow blower to the tractor? Is it a 6-foot blower, or is it?
It's not much of a snow blower either, so.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
So what kind of direction do you want? Are we just, is this for information or how do you?
It's up to you guys if you wanna, approve this tonight, like, oh.
Yeah, sorry, just waiting my turn. I just wanted to talk about, the renovations to the office and whether this is the time to do this. We have, we're gonna have to catch up on some staffing costs in, which we discussed, and I think are discussing again later. Is this the time to put 100,000 into the office? Is the office functioning or is it? Like I know that in an ideal world, that would be fantastic. Is there somebody that's displaced at the moment that's working off site, or is this something you can push back here?
Through the mayor, the renovation that's being proposed would be separate and apart from the staffing report that's on the agenda, so it would be funded from the service efficiency fund. So you wouldn't be necessarily offsetting any costs, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, no, I was just talking about overall costs. So if we use that under the service efficiency, we can't use the service efficiency for something else, right? Like Tracy mentioned that service efficiency is a very wide category.
It's 262,000 in the service efficiency fund. Renovation is I think, quite fairly scoped out at maybe south of 100,000. So, you know, is there anybody displaced now? Well, we would normally have a co-op student here, but we don't have room for them. We would in time promote the idea of succession planning involving a deputy treasurer, which we don't have room for right now. We should be thinking about some succession planning and building and planning. We don't have any space for, say, a junior plans examiner to work. So if Martin were to leave, we would be sometime trying to replace him with no backup plan. So we have no succession plan in the CBO area. We have no succession plan in the clerk. So we need.
We're getting old.
When you call your office, we'll still be here.
So even if we were to say share some succession planning and have maybe someone here 2 days a week and share them 3 days a week somewhere else, in any of those positions, we don't have anywhere for them to be, other than this room here.
This office is used every day.
3 or 4 days a week between the drainage superintendent and the planner.
That sounds like a lot of staff that we don't have a budget to hire either right now.
That's a completely separate issue.
Yeah.
But you know, you asked a question, that's the answer.
Yeah, that was just my concern, is that we put a lot of money into the other building with the thought that staff would use it, and then that didn't work out as we originally planned. It's been sitting there empty, and just cautious about putting more money into office space.
To be fair, it was never my plan to move staff there.
No, that was before you.
Okay.
Understood. But that's how it was sold to us when it originally was. We needed more space, so we had to invest money into a safe, accessible place that staff could work.
Sure. Yeah, and thankfully, I think we might have a tenant for that though. But that's it. I don't wanna bring all the good news at once.
That's not getting good news during the capital
Yeah, let's say,
discussion.
I was just gonna mention that possibly could use that for a short period of time if we had to.
Yeah, if, for sure, your worship, if we had to, we could definitely put people there. My concern is having people working alone there, and the safety issues. And so that's part of my reluctance to do that, is I don't, there's nobody in this building who doesn't engage with the public. So when someone comes here to see Martin or Lizette or Tracy, you know, if they're over there, we would have to call them, tell them to come here, meet the person, so on and so forth. You know, and the team doesn't think it's a good idea for me to be there on my own, so, doesn't really work with our operation to have a satellite office.
Just part of my thought is in the way that the world is working and people are starting to have more flex time, and if there is staff here that are working from home, what becomes much more, working as flex offices, which are not run by one person, but can move between. And, as I understand it, we do have some staff working from home occasionally, so
We don't have anyone working from home at all.
whenever staff told me they work from home. So I maybe misunderstood.
Occasionally, one staff member might work from home if the weather is difficult to come in. Alternatively, there's a staff member who will flex their time if they have to attend evening meetings. There are certain circumstances where employees will work from home, but routinely, no one is flexing their time. So yes, there are exceptions, but the rule is that people work in the office.
Oh, that's good.
Councillor, actually, Councillor Vanessa, did you have anything before or no? No?
Oh, in a little bit.
Oh, okay. Councillor Jeff Bell?
If we're done with the building, I want to just talk about something a little bit different, but if we're, assuming we're just done with renovation, I'm sorry.
Councillor Corrigan?
We're still talking about capital.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
I was just, I know you haven't been here long enough, but do we have an idea where our levy rate's gonna be?
With moving, now this is just, I've been working on, it, but with moving the 100 grand for the office renovations over to the reserve and not tax levy, moving the 80,000 of drains over to the drain reserve and not tax funding. I'm anywhere between 10 point something and 12 point something, depending on what happens with salaries. So with having council go to the full annualized and the staff the impact of staff increases, I'm at 12.41. No raises at all, taking them all out 10.36 and only staff 11.97. But that's just my first go through. I'll be going through the budget line by line. That amount includes the laptop reserve, council laptop reserve transfer of 2,500, election transfer of 5,000, police transfer of 30,000, which I'm up by 5 because we're never going to meet the next 3-year for the police car. Drains of 31,000, vehicle equipment reserve 385,000, and solid waste disposal of 87,555. And then I've also used this tax rate stabilization to bring in 164,000. That is to get that reserve to 250,000 for council's direction in 2023. So that's all, that would bring that reserve down to 250. So, you know, considering council funded almost 490,000 last year from the tax rate reserve, we brought it down 8%, that now we're trying to catch up on. I think 12% is pretty good when we've got to catch up, you know, places. 20%, the one fire is 20%. The dust control and gravel is 50% because it got cut last year and now we've got to catch up. Yeah, so when you start, you know, trying to hide it 1 year, then you got to catch up the next year, and you're not going to have very good increases.
Councilor Vaness?
So on the capital projects, some of these are pre-approved, some are priority, some are optional. Can you give us those numbers? Is that all included or the optional?
That's everything. That's everything. That 2.742 is everything. But some of those were pre-approved in end of December for the roads. I think this Ken was going to get some better pricing. So.
Councilor Jetham?
As much as I may get beat up outside of this, I really don't currently see the necessity for the Downing Optimist or the Kirkton Woodland Optimist to have electronic signs. I know I'm gonna probably get some flack for that outside this room, but I think that's money that can certainly be spent, allocated better elsewhere. I just don't believe this is the time for either Optimist Club to be looking for an electronic sign.
Did you want to speak to that?
No, I wholeheartedly agree, but no.
Deputy Mayor Level?
I disagree with Councilor Bell. Kirk and the community center board there are very interested and really want new sign on Highway 23. It was good exposure and for a cost of $25,000 for the township. Is that unrealistic?
Councilor Martin?
Have they got RFPs for that sign? Like, are they ready to go ahead with it?
No, and that's something that we could always, if it comes in too high. With the RFP, we could always stop at that point. But the 100,000 right now is a guess. Because we haven't, I don't think we've decided on what exactly the sign is, what sizes should be, or anything else. So I would imagine that the prices would vary a lot on what you were looking for. So I would like to see us go for an RFP, and if you feel it's outrageous, then we can stop it.
Councillor Kirby?
We skipped a year of gravel. Is that $250,000 in the gravel road reserve part of that? Yeah. But that could all be used, I mean. $250,000, we skipped a year. Why don't we use it? We never had a gravel reserve before. Maybe we should be using it, that'll bring it down like 6%.
If I could, your worship, so that's, that would have the effect that you are looking for, but you will be in this spot next year.
Yeah, okay.
So that's part of what I think Tracy's getting at is, you know, you brought out, I think it was last year, Tracy's 500,000.
It was almost 500,
45.
yeah.
To bring the levy increase down. And that's part of what you're seeing this year is, it's back.
So yeah, I would suggest if, it seems like every other year you do less gravel or something, like it just seems like that one year you do a lot, the other year you don't. I would suggest you keep that number the same every year, whether you do it or not, and put that other money back in the reserves
So
instead of doing this.
we're in the habit of alternating between the two wards each year. One ward will get maintenance gravel one year, one ward will get the next year, but everyone gets less control.
I think we only missed one.
We're only missed one.
Yeah.
Councillor Martin?
And that the reserve was a result of that, right? This is not something we've ever had before. So does it make sense to create a new reserve to carry it?
My understanding, and the council members will know better than I do, but there was a year where gravel was deferred, and in favor of that deferral, a smaller amount was put into the reserve fund. That's where that 250 comes from.
Yes, and I think that was to make repairs if that turned out to be a really bad decision. Which maybe, like as Corby mentioned, maybe now is the time.
So if I could, and I'll defer to the treasurer, but if you're inclined not to have a gravel reserve, and a reserve fund policy is one of the things we're talking about, perhaps you want that fund in your tax rate stabilization fund. So that you will actually have a purpose for that fund. And, you know, you would dip into it, advise it, but you would have it.
Councillor Kirby?
Do we have to catch up on all in one year, or can we do it over two? Like, could we use something like that to just get into single digits instead of 11 or 12%?
Yeah, that would bring it down 5%.
Yeah, just,
Yeah.
well, not, it doesn't have to come down 5, but if it was 8 or 9 instead of 12, 11 or 12. But that's just my thoughts. I mean, do we have to do it all in 1 year, or can we just do it in 2 years? Like spread it just a little bit. What's your recommendation? It's go right at it, or?
What's my recommendation? My recommendation is that you should raise the money that you need each year. And use your tax rate stabilization fund to be available for years that have anomalies in them that you have not anticipated. But I'm not a big fan of using reserve funds to reduce raising money. I think that we were here last year. Yeah, you're just pushing it off, and and the result is that you're not actually raising enough money to run the business.
So should we spending our summer reserves and instead of saving money? Like, what's a good reserve amount?
That's a very good question. I would say that you're very close. I would say you're very close to where I think you should be comfortable. As I say, you know, your reserve funds are there to deal with the bad weather, you know, the rocky roads, the tough seas. That's what your reserve funds are there. So for example, you know, you have a fire reserve fund because eventually you're going to replace a piece of equipment, so you're saving up money there. You know, you have a reserve fund for the water systems because they're eventually going to have some capital expenses. That's what reserve funds are for. To have reserves for purposes that are unclear makes them vulnerable to being used for things like tax stabilization. When that's not what their purpose was when they were created.
So your number, Tracy, has it got Perth County?
for, sorry, which,
The lead increase.
no, that's just ours, that's just the lower level. Yeah, so, and I guess Fred said I agree, like you have your standard reserve transfers, which you've been doing with your police cars and your vehicle equipment, because those are big capital items. But yeah, not just to be putting money away so that you can bring the tax rate down it doesn't make any sense. You should be consistently have a transfer to specific reserves every year in the budget, it never changes, then the money's there when you, and then you're not raising, you're not having like a $2 million capital levy one year because you don't have money put away to buy the vehicles. They're there. You have a savings account for capital items, big items, extreme weather events, stuff like that you can't budget for because you don't know. You don't have a crystal ball, right? You don't know when you're gonna have such an extreme weather event that you go over budget.
So if we go with your recommendation this year, what will next year look like?
Better.
Better because we won't have hit this part, like not hit, but you know what I mean, like falsified what we needed to raise.
And God willing, Tracy and I are both here next year. You'll see a different strategy for budgeting.
Because we all are getting old, you know.
Succession plan.
Well, we both arguing about the winning lottery ticket today.
Yeah. So Tracy and I both believe that the better strategy for budgeting is to make consistent contributions. And then annually you decide what your priorities are and you fund them from those reserves rather than trying to work hard enough every year to pay for what you think you need. That's not a winning formula. Tracy and I both agree that's not the best way to budget your organization. You should budget consistent contributions to your capital reserve, and then every year you decide what your capital priorities are, and you fund as many of them as you're comfortable with, rather than funding as many of them as you're comfortable with within the tax rate you want to raise. Follow me?
Yeah.
Deputy Mayor Will?
Yeah, if we can walk back, we discussed about this, New Holland tractor, but I think we left it up in the air. And I think Ken needs some direction from where I'm sitting anyways, and quite a number of years ago, we were looking at replacing a payloader in Ranny, and we decided that age shouldn't be a determining factor. However, we went out and got oil samples. And the results of the oil samples were not good, and we decided that we should purchase a new piece of equipment. I don't know if we should take the same direction here, or because if we go out and take the Council Vanessa's lead on getting a backhoe, then we have to rent a tractor for how many months a year to cut grass, and I don't know how often you use it for snow blowing, but that could be an issue. But if we aren't gonna go that way, then do we keep this tractor and get oil samples and perhaps see what the engine and everything is like? Don't know, I think Ken needs direction.
Ken, what would you?
So in my head, I had kind of got direction to get a price on a backhoe, so I could have that information for council. And if you want me to get some oil samples done, and I can get that information for council, it might help make any decisions.
I wouldn't worry about oil samples so much on a tractor, it's actually finding out what's wrong with the PTO. Right, and I mean, calling the dealer or have somebody come and have a look at it, they don't have to bust the tractor in half, they shouldn't have to tell you what's wrong with it. And give you a rough estimate on what the cost.
Do you have enough direction?
And I can gather some information and bring it back to council.
Just
Councilor.
While we're on capital here, I have two trains of thought here, it's totally opposed. But we've been putting money in reserves, and that's been simply eaten away by inflation over the last 4 years. So 4 years ago, we had $8 million. We can only buy less than $3.5 million with that money today. So there is the prospect that, having all this money in the bank really doesn't do us any good, and it should be in the ratepayers' pockets, and they can do something with. And yet the other part of me is saying, I think as a council, we've got some bigger fish here. I mean, we haven't talked, the possibility exists, we may have to put a new pool in. We may have to do something in Kirkton. We may possibly end up with a firewall. I have no idea, but we haven't discussed any of that in our capital, and like, there's some huge things out there. And I don't know, it's probably too big for this discussion, but it's certainly something staff and council should be looking at. Unfortunately, we missed that. I think we missed that in our strategic plan.
Through the mayor, I think part of the challenge is that you haven't had the building condition assessments that you will want to give you a good sense of what you need for your current physical assets. Because you're right, they do need maintenance, they do need life cycle replacement, they do need asset retirement obligation commitments under legislation. So, there is a reserve fund for the Kirkton pool. Is it enough for replacement? Of course not. But it never will be, because that'll never be a project that township or Perth South funds on its own. That's just not how those major sort of cultural assets are funded. But yeah, I think you're right, yeah. I think you'll have some important tools when you get the building condition assessments done. If we can get the reports on those assets, then we'll have a better idea of those structure and asset reserves and contributions that will be needed. And those will in some ways take the decision away from you.
Just in that train of thought too, for building condition assessments, I guess I would personally like to see what's needed out in Kirkton overall before we approve the sign, because if I had a list, I mean, I know they want the sign and I'm supportive of the sign, but if there was something else that really needed to be done, I might choose that differently, and I won't know the answer to that. The other thing I think we need to be cautious of is the fact that for Mosh, if we do agree on the sign, we gotta make sure that they agree on the sign. So maybe we have to have a conversation with them as to, as Councilor Vanessa, down the line, like, are we both committed to everything that there is? So, Councilor.
One thing I'd like to see in the reserves, I'd like to see them less reserves, keep the money there, but a lot less reserves, because you have to think about it, we have 60 bridges and culverts, like, we have a lot of huge capital things that could happen at any time, and a bridge replacement now is probably $2 or $3 million and going up. So I do agree with the reserves, I just, maybe if they're condensed into,
I absolutely agree, there's way too many reserves, I think one got set up for every $5 of spare we had, so, yeah, they do need to be cleaned out, it's, even for bookkeeping, right, it's a little easier than all those different reserves. But
well, Jim's right, we could have some huge capital costs coming next 10 years, we don't know what's coming next, and I always say they're one-offs, but they're really not, they're coming, we know they're coming.
And that's exactly what I was saying earlier, that using the citywide software to what the purpose it's for, this is going to give you that long term, and it's gonna tell you, this is what you should be putting in your facility fund, your road fund. It will tell you that, and then you are aware of what you should be saving or collecting every year.
Councilor Vanessa.
Just to change it a little bit, just a question for Ken here. We pre-approved some work done on line 29 and I guess road 125 also. The one part of road 25, road 125 going north of 129, or line 29 is one coat of asphalt, and the one going south is 2 coats. And I'm wondering, there's a tile, a culvert going under the road on 125 south of line 29. Can we replace that sometime in the next few months?
That's it. That's the plan,
Before we actually pave the road, because it's already a 6-inch drop there, and it's every 6 months, it's getting a couple inches deeper, the culvert is collapsing. It'd be good to get it done now, leave that part of that stretch of the road gravel and let it settle before we pave it.
That's the plan, yes.
Great, glad to hear, thank you.
Okay, it's 5 to 9. Is there any other questions regarding the project? I do notice here that we have, do you want any direction on capital projects or do you have enough?
I think I will, if council's not ready to approve this, I think I'll bring it back. Next meeting with Ken's, answers on the, equipment. With the new suggestions of taking 100 grand out of, the tax levy, the 80,000 for drains. Is there any direction that you wanna pull that forward, 25 out of the tax rate?
Yeah, I would like to, and
I mean,
we can
that-
always do it next year.
I would need
It needs to
council's
be done.
idea on that, and then also the 50,000 that's in the tax levy for the signs. I'm not sure if anybody, if council has a consensus on any of that tonight.
I can tell you as, through the mayor, as far as the signs are concerned, I can tell you that Mosh has not contributed anything to that, fund in 2020. Now, you know, they have said, look, if you guys put the money away and you wanna go ahead, we'll probably try and fund it somehow through our operating capital. But I can just tell you that they haven't set aside specifically for that sign in 2025.
So maybe we can play it safe and put 25 away just in case for Kirkton, but I'm getting the sense that Downey is probably not interested.
I think that would be very soon.
And I'm wondering too, if you're gonna get the money from POA, from the county, if that makes any difference.
No, that'll be the operating.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, and like I said before, I'd like to see the RFP go for signs and then we can deal with it at that point in time. Yes, you're right, Ted has indicated from Mosh that, if we were to go forward, they would find money someplace. Or they move it out of 26 budget.
You don't wanna wait for the building assessment?
Let's get the RFP out. We're not gonna buy the signs, but if we don't get the RFP out, then we're not gonna have anything for this year and possibly not next year. So we need to me, we need to know what the cost is.
Okay.
And it's not gonna cost a lot to get an RFP out.
All right, you need direction on that or who's gonna do the RFP?
It will probably be us.
Okay. And is that Ken or you or?
Yep, okay.
Is there, like, Ken, is there a contact, like,
Yeah.
does the Kirkton board or committee, do they have the idea of what they want, I
Yeah.
guess?
And they had a pre-approval. I think most of the legwork is done.
But we just need to make sure we get the information as to what they want, yeah, that's all.
I can connect you with them. Okay, I do see here about Downey landfill. Do you want to talk about that now? It's in this, but it's not in here in my mind, but he did declare, so. Go ahead.
Can I speak? So when Tracy, a couple weeks ago, you received hard copies of all of the capital projects, including the landfill, but when I was trying to explain to Councillor Van Ness today, when I had to change each of the project into a PDF and then build it into a one document, I missed that one, so that was my fault.
Okay.
So,
This is in there. Okay.
so yeah, it's not part of the,
So that would be that's the land. purchase, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that relates to the municipality's obligation to purchase land that was contaminated as a result of the operation of that landfill.
The ground, it's the groundwater, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's kind of, it was kind of in my mandatory
Yeah.
section that we need to do that one, so yeah.
So we've seen the report at one point in time, we just don't have it right here.
No,
no, it is there.
This is,
And you would have got the detail sheet last couple weeks ago when I sent them out, but then I think they just, before we put them on the agenda, that one just got used.
Okay, now I see it, there. So the direction that you would want,
We need that to be approved.
So, is council ready to approve the budget tonight, like with some of the changes we've made, or do we wanna make a resolution, or do we wanna just bring it back, or?
Get a clarification, and did that money not already get approved, some of it, or this is more?
Yeah, so there was
Okay.
some,
Yes.
in a
Yeah.
prior year.
Yeah.
And it's been carried forward for a couple of years, I believe.
Yeah,
And then, the costs, land costs and stuff have gone up, so.
Yeah.
There's a little bit additional added on to it.
Mhm. Yeah, this is just the addition, because I didn't include anything that was pre-approved in this, because it's already been approved.
Yeah.
if it's already been approved, why are you retargeting?
This is just, it's an additional
It's
cost,
Okay,
so it went up again, so we're just getting, yeah. Yeah.
previously.
Um,
$40,000. Additional.
Yeah.
Additional.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you need a motion then for this specifically?
Well, that,
No, I think it's all part of.
Yeah, it's all part of the budget, so it's, so can we piecemeal it here? So my recommendation is take the $100,000 for the building, office renovations, 80,000, was it 80,670 in drains? Both over to reserves, that brings the tax rate down to 1.402816. Then we've got the 2 signs, take 1 sign out. That brings us down to 1352816. Then there's the Rathburn. Do we defer it?
I'd sort of put it on for next year, yeah.
Okay, and so then that would bring the tax levy down to 1.327816.
so you want to, that fact.
If you want to approve tonight, or I can bring it back with a cleaned up version next meeting. It's totally when Ken has his answers on his vehicles, because this still has the vehicles in it. There's also the columbarium, it's $5,000 from reserve, but I'm not sure if council wants to defer to that or go ahead. That one wasn't.
I'd like to see that go.
Yeah, I'd like to say about it too, but does that not fall under the Stevensville Cemetery?
Yeah, it's not reserve, it's not reserve, it's not,
But
yeah.
so we're just lending that money to the Stevensville Cemetery, like they have their own funds. So we do not,
I think we have a reason.
It has a
was on the
reserve.
sheet, yeah, so, yeah,
There's
Yeah.
37,000 in
Yeah.
reserve,
yeah,
can we fund it?
Yeah.
yeah, so really it's not coming out.
no,
Councilor Corbin.
Is it allowed to come out of the irrevocable trust? There's lots of stipulations on
are
there.
you talking about the care and maintenance?
No, on the $5,000.
Yeah, no, but you're talking about the money that's in trust from the care and maintenance. That can only be spent on capital items, you can only technically spend the interest. And then, I think you can spend it on capital item. I don't know if that would be considered a capital item.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I can add.
Yeah.
I believe, the columbariums, whatever, could be funded from some of the cemetery reserves. The intent though would be that they be paid back through the sale of niches, I guess you call it.
Yeah.
So it's not, it'd be just, a loan, I guess,
Yeah.
through the cemeteries, what I understand, okay.
I'm gathering that we should have you clean it up and bring it back. When is the final time that we have to pass this legally? Overall about it?
Before send out the tax bill, so, when's the first tax? When's the
think it's already.
No, I meant not interim, final, was the first one.
We
due?
sent them out at the end of August, I
End
believe.
of August, so-
Okay, I don't
We-
wait till August.
No, but I mean, you have to have the tax rate that before.
Am I sensing that, or does somebody wanna pass that we, yeah, we're cleaning it up and bringing it back next year?
Then you'll know exactly what the levy is again.
Okay. Councillor Vanessa?
Just one question, the Perth County, they've set their tax rate around 11-12%.
Yeah.
How much will that impact our increase?
Our residents will see 12 and 12, so yeah,
So we're looking at 25%.
on their bill, yeah,
It's 11.35.
yeah. Yeah, because education didn't change.
Okay, I have no recommendations then. I would suggest that it's 9 o'clock, we're gonna take a 3 to 4 minute break, and come back for that reports. Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Back on track. Okay, we are at 8.3, CAO Deputy Clerk. Floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, your worship. First report, is, administrative report, really. The deputy fire chief of the Gulf Blanchard Fire Service, retired or announced his retirement. There was a search that was undertaken. There's a recommended candidate before you. That candidate has been recommended by the Gulf Blanchard Fire Board. You have 2 council members who represent the township there. If they wish, they can certainly expand on the discussion that took place there. But the Gulf Blanchard Fire Board has recommended that firefighter Brian Bates be appointed to the role of acting deputy fire chief and officer for that fire board.
Councilor Murphy?
He has all the qualifications and more, and he can do fire protection. He's very qualified and highly recommended by the chief.
Excellent. Any other comments? Questions? Councilor Jeff Bell?
No, I'm just, that resume is very impressive. I think, we're lucky to have, someone like that, willing to, step into that role.
All right, seeing no further questions, I have a recommendation that the council receive information for this report and that council confirms the recommendation of the Gulf Blanchard Fire Board, BBFB, to appoint Brian Bates to the position of acting deputy chief and officer effective April 30th, 2025. Moved by Councilor Corview, second by Deputy Mayor Wilhelm. All those in favor? Carried.
My next report is my activity report. I'm happy answering questions.
Any questions regarding? Councilor Martin?
Still to break on the old town hall, was the reduction in the asking price motivating for?
I don't know. I think it was coincidental, to be honest.
Oh, okay.
Because the listing with the revision was literally just posted.
Oh, no.
So I don't think it was.
Oh.
I think it was just coincidental. But I won't share any details publicly. I'm not sure that the potential candidate's ready for any kind of public announcement, but I'll certainly share privately after the meeting.
Any other questions? Okay, so I have a recommendation that the CAO report, update report be received for information. Moved by Councilor Vanessa, second by Jeff Bell. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, we are at council and staff compensation study.
Thank you, worship. So I took the opportunity based on some of the discussion last day to provide a bit more background. It was some time ago that the council initially considered the Gallagher report. I've tried in this update to give you a bit more context for the work that was done, the engagement of our employees in this exercise, the investment they have made in this process, and of course they have been anticipating council's decision on this exercise since they completed it back in 2023. I've also tried to highlight some of the HR challenges that we have here, including that half of our staff are within 5 years of retirement, and that we do, certainly my recommendation is that we give serious thought to trying to develop some succession plans for some of our key leadership roles, including our CBO, treasurer, and clerk. That type of HR strategy is not currently possible, either from a facilities perspective or from a funding perspective. We don't have the funding envelope to fund those positions. certainly not this year, but I would be advocating that we give that some serious thought over the next 2 to 4 years. This report and the salary adjustments that are recommended, in my view, are really the cost of doing business for the organization. It's not a big organization, but our employees are very important. And, you know, as much as there is always a temptation in small organizations like this to put, you know, the customers first, it's also very important to reward your employees for their good work, dedication, and make sure that they aren't tempted to leave by more competitive salaries elsewhere. This past 6 months has definitely been very challenging in terms of recruitment. And our capacity to do that on a regular basis is really very limited if we want to get anything else done. So the recommendations are there before you. I feel very strongly that this is a necessity. This is the cost of doing business, both from a compensation point of view and from a pay equity compliance point of view. And I'm definitely happy to answer any additional questions you might have.
Deputy Mayor Rohan?
Yeah, last meeting, I think we got bogged down with too much involvement in council remuneration, et cetera. So I would like to look at this first from a staffing perspective. And with that, I would, knowing that we probably started this process in 2022 in hiring a consultant, we finally got something in 23 and we haven't done anything since. I would like to recommend that we go back to the start of 24 and bring the staff up to the recommended Gallagher favor.
And are you breaking it in two? You're talking just about the staff?
Then, yeah, that's just that. It's not the council involved. Well, I'd like to do that separate.
Councilor Martin?
Yeah, I just like to thank staff for putting this together. This is a lot easier to understand. I think, I think Mayor Wilhelm's right. It was a little confusing. It was a little bogged down. It was historical, but this grid looks fair to me, and I would agree that it would be good to move forward, catch this half up from 2024, and adopt this grid.
So
Is that option A, B, or C?
I'm just, that's the same question.
That's why I just said that. You pick off and I don't care. That's what I'm looking for.
So do you have, which option is just so that we get the staff building?
I think it's,
Go ahead. I would say that it's the second. So the first one is that you adopt the grid. The second one is that if you want to exclude council, then the second one would be the increases that would be reflected in the grid. So adopting the grid and adjusting the grid based on the CPI increases from last year and this year. And if you want to be clear that you're excluding council from that, you can simply make that part of your motion.
Councilor Corbin?
I think on page, it makes it clear on page 312, you're going for option A.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you're okay. You're looking at Tracy's report from last day.
Mm-hmm.
Ah,
I think that makes it clear, doesn't it, Fred, option A on that?
yes, that's right.
Okay, so why don't I read the adoption recommendation about the grid first? Then we'll go to option A and see where it lands. Unless somebody else has questions or input. We're just talking about the staff. So I have a recommendation that the council adopts the proposed 2024 Gallagher salary grid that achieves internal equity, meets pay equity compliance obligations, and is externally competitive. Moved by Deputy Mayor Wilhelm, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? Carried. And we're going to go to the option A. Recommendation, see if we get it on the floor, that council adopt option A, pay the 2024 retro and one-time budget cost of $57,344. Incorporate the new salary grade into the 2025 budget at a total impact of $69,528 and pay the 2025 retro at a cost of $17,745 owing from January 1st to 28th. So this is just for the staff. I'm putting it on the floor. Moved by Deputy Mayor Wilhelm, seconded by Councillor Jeff Bell. Any questions? All those in favor? That is carried. Do you wanna have a,
I would like to propose.
okay. Do you wanna, I have to go, he's gonna pose it, so do you want me to?
You can ask for that at least.
So typically, I'll let the clerk make the ruling, sir.
So if a recorded vote was requested at
Then
the
I'd like
beginning,
a recorded vote.
well, so it should have been requested at the time of the calling of the vote. So sorry, because it's already been voted on, and carried. I can make a note in the minutes if.
I'd like that.
Okay.
Okay, now, do you want to talk about the council?
If I might, your worship, there's two components to the council, approach. One is that, your salary be annualized. And the other is that it be adjusted or not adjusted. The annualized salary is something that would be more administratively efficient for our team. Rather than coming up with who went to how many meetings and when and whether it was a full day or a half day or an afternoon or an evening, that's a lot of work for payroll. And my suggestion is that just, it really just comes down to basically one number annually is what each of you are paid. And it would be way easier for us if, regardless of whether you gave yourselves an increase, you just move to that form of payment. So there's that one. And then if you wanted to adjust your pay comp based on the Gallagher report, then that's a separate issue. I would suggest that you've got sort of two decisions there to make.
Deputy Mayor Wilhelm?
Okay, I'm not in favor of annual. I've talked with councillors who get an annual salary. And they're not happy because some of the councillors do nothing. And a bunch go to a lot of meetings, but they all get the same pay. So I'm not in favor of that. I am in favor of council getting the 60th percentile increase starting January 1, 2025.
Anyone else? Councillor Vanessa.
I'm fine for a raise as long as it starts with new council.
So that will be
October 26th. I will vote for it, if it's new council, if it's this council, I will be voting against. And I would request a recorded vote too.
And what is the budget impact?
With the full annualized, it was 19,358, and with the increase on the base, it won't be much because you're always under budget anyway, so it probably is gonna come along the same.
So do you want to go around, sorry, go ahead, Sam?
Oh, I agree with Bob. I would be in agreement for January 1st, 2025. So the numbers that I look at are on 312. The 2025 numbers for a counselor would be 5587. it's not a big increase and the impact would be very low.
So we want to break it into two. I was thinking, first of all, we want to talk about base or annual.
Just a comment I wanted to make was that staff has to do the mileage computations anyways when they go to meetings, so to add in one column, whether it's pay for the payroll, to me, doesn't seem like a very onerous job.
There was a time when I was first here that we were doing it ourselves, but then I think, whether or not I couldn't get into the program or whatever, I just started saying, oh, it's easier to send it to Lizette. Maybe we as counselors need to be retrained on software, like at the county, I have to do it myself.
So eventually, we are, now that we have a treasurer hired, one of the things we'll be looking at is a payroll platform. Just, so, I mean, it is a little bit time consuming to fill out the form. It's not that time consuming, and I am training Leland, so that's gonna be helpful too. So we at least have a backup, but, it's really up to council. It's, the council piece, is once a month. It's not as, labor intensive as, doing payroll every 2 weeks, but, it's what kind of council like comfortable with, so.
Okay, so I think we need direction on if it's annual or base. Who would like to make a motion? Councilor Martin?
I appreciate, sorry, I can't talk. I agree with Bob. What Bob's?
Have a chocolate.
Yeah.
Bob, would you make a motion?
You want me to?
Yeah,
read?
well,
You want it in two parts or one?
just, let's start with the one.
Okay, then my motion is that we continue on, pay as it is, with, base rate and, per meeting rate. Top of that,
Okay,
not an annual salary.
moved by Deputy Mayor Wilhelm, second by Councilor Martin. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Jim called for
Yeah.
No.
Oh, okay.
Okay, sorry, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so we are approved on that. Move to carry, okay. And then the second part of the motion then would be that we increase the salary. I believe we're at two different timelines here, from what I'm understanding.
I don't think so. Well, yeah, Jim said,
No, one of the recommendations were that we have to have people, we want people in the community to apply to be counselors, and that, I mean, we just had a by-election, we had 6 people running, so it's not like we're begging people to run either. I just don't like that we should, we're here giving ourselves a raise. I think the community should be able to decide that, and I'm okay giving a raise if it starts the next term of council. And the community can decide if we deserve it or not.
All right, what? Deputy Mayor Wilhelm?
yeah, I feel that we hired a consultant to, do the evaluation, and, they basically said we were bottom or second from the bottom, and I don't think that shows very much appreciation for council. And I think that, it's not much money anyways, and, will not, I don't think it'll impact our budget negatively, and I think it shows a good sign of good faith towards councilors also.
And just to clarify, you are starting January 2025,
Yes.
so it's halfway through the term. Any other comments? So I'll put a motion on the floor that we are going to increase the salary January 2025 for the council. It's at the base rate. Put on the floor by Deputy Mayor Wilhelm, seconded by
Can you get a number on that?
right here.
You mean what the salary would be?
Yeah,
Or
what it is
increase?
now, is it 51 and it's going to 54? Is that correct?
No, I think it's 38 and going up to 50. what was that? 55.
What page is that? I'm at 313.
I'm on 312.
I'm on two as well.
2,
3. So I believe this is what we're looking at.
It was
some for counselors.
It was 3,500.
At 51,
Yeah, and this is gonna.
Okay, the
we're gonna go
COLA.
with the- Yeah, 2025.
No,
yeah,
no, that would be
So
salary.
we're going from 35 something to.
Yeah. So the base would
could be
be
35,
44,000.
51.
No, the old one, we're going from 3,500 as we are now to,
The base would be 55.
Yeah, times 5,000.
we're going.
So it'd be 44,000 on
The
budget.
base is
Plus
51,
your
correct?
your budget
Yes,
already
the
is
base-
almost.
And it's going to
60.
55. If we're talking
That's not-
$400 a year.
No, that's the base.
That's what we get paid big.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you'd have to look at what we're getting paid.
Yeah.
Which doesn't.
No, listen, they said 5,100, that's where we should have been at in 2023, but we were at 3,500 something. It's in here, I just can't.
Then we added this, then we added this.
Yeah, but that's only a difference of, what was it, 3,500?
Right here, it's just page 308.
Talking $2,000.
We're at 35,
So
37.
that's what I was saying, like total is 44,000.
Aren't we about $500 a month?
Your budget breakdown is
Well,
66.
look on
Times
page,
12 months.
look on page 308.
That's not 3,500.
You're where I'm at.
308.
But yes.
I don't have to go at all.
Oh, you're already over budget. Yeah, yeah.
Next neighbor. There.
That's it.
It's the first one there. See council?
35, 37.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's what the 23.
So that's. And we would move to what, 51?
55.
55.
With the two increases from 23 to 25. So the impact of the base will be 44,000 on the budget. You've been carrying 66,000 already and you never hit it, so I don't think it's gonna be much of an impact on the budget at all.
Okay. So we clear as mud or? Well, what is the impact to the budget?
Going to the base,
To the base?
I would say at the most 7,500. You've been budgeting 66, or just over 66,000 for the last couple of years, and you're coming in around. Last year it was around 60, so you get these increases in there, it's not gonna affect it much.
Well, it's gonna affect the 2,000 person.
Yes.
2,000 person. I don't care
If
what budget,
it's-
what are we spending? So it's going up another 12,000, which may or may not be a lot.
Well, no, it's gonna be, yeah, the difference about $2,000 each, so, yeah, 14. You're almost 7 under budget right now, so that's why I said you might go up like 7,500.
So-
Going up 14.
Because of the way that
I
we
don't
budget,
care budget, what we're spending, it's this.
no,
You're
but
not-
because of the way that we budget based on anticipated meeting attendance, we never reach what we budget. So,
But we will be spending 14,000.
If we all went to meetings and committees and.
But you've already raised 7,000 too much, because the
Yes.
budget's never been right.
so you're not, so to be clear, you're not adding the difference onto what you're currently budgeting, because you're not spending what you're budgeting.
Notice appear that we have given council a 40% raise.
Don't know what the math is up.
That's off the top of my head, like, is that the easy math on that? Because, that seems like a wildly unpopular idea right now.
I think you're probably right on base.
Yeah, that's about.
Yeah. It will look like it's about 11%.
Councilor Kirby?
I think if the public knew what we made on base, they'd probably laugh at us.
Well, I'm not sure when the last time you enhanced your comp was, but it's been quite a long time.
Nobody ever wants to do it, frankly,
Right.
because that'll be the headline tomorrow.
So what I would recommend
Mhm.
is that you amend Deputy Mayor Wilhelm's motion to also include that council's salaries will be adjusted by the inflationary increase that the council approves annually for staff.
Mhm.
Then you won't have to do this in 5 years.
But we don't wanna start, we wanna do yours retroactive, I'm understanding we just wanna do the ours starting in 2025.
You could still include the inflationary increase,
Going forward,
Yeah.
yeah.
the CPI increase that you typically approve annually, or consider anyway.
Mhm. Is that,
I just, because I've been doing payroll for a few years, I think council has adjusted their current base rate. There was a time where they did take a position where they weren't applying CPI, but I believe the CPI increase has been applied to the base rate in the last couple of years. As part of the budget. Is my understanding, but
Okay, so from what,
yeah,
Oh.
here's my version.
yeah, going back. Oh, so going back to, you want to increase it by CPI?
The council agreed, yeah. And if I can try and help you,
Yes.
that we refer to the Gallagher's 60 percentile and follow their 2025 rate. And going forward, we increase council remuneration by COLA. And
Okay, so you want to do the recommendation from Gallagher. You want to also improve the COLA, but you think it's already been added.
I don't think it's going forward. I don't think it's been going forward.
Going forward.
yes,
Okay, and you wanna make it effective January 2025, we're just halfway through the term.
Yep.
And you would like a recorded vote? So, I'm gonna move that on the floor if you believe that you have the right recommendation out there. Yeah, I'll need a seconder. Moved by Deputy Mayor Wilhelm, seconded by Councillor Corview. So we are having a recorded
Yeah,
vote.
so I will take over calling of the vote, so when I call your name, please answer yay or nay. To the resolution, which is to increase council pay to the proposed Gallagher grid, at the 60th percentile. And to adjust council pay going forward by COLA each year, and this is effective January 1st, 2025. Good with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll start with Deputy Mayor Wilhelm,
yes.
Councillor Corby,
Yes.
Councillor Dennis,
No.
Councillor Bell,
Yes.
Councillor Martin.
I'm struggling with this one, without knowing what, this year's percentage is gonna look like.
Guess I had a little more, maybe I shouldn't say anything that I
Well, we're in the recorded votes, we have to each have to say our votes. I'm sorry.
Can I abstain? I don't know. No, I need more time.
This is part of the job of being.
I understand.
Sometimes you have to make some tough decisions.
It's been a long day.
I hear you.
Oh, upload. Okay. I feel like I'm not ready, so I'm gonna say no.
Mayor Moore,
I'm gonna say yes.
the vote carries. 1-2.
I would like to point out, Tracy, what the change for me was that we already were budgeting. And we just have never got there, so, we are trying to get new counselors if we don't come up at some point in time. And whether we do it now or a year from now, it's, as Sam calls it now. A difficult decision. And that's carried, so we're moving on.
Thank you, Worship. The final report is the building condition assessment, tender award. We had, I think we had 7 bidders on this job. It was pretty competitive bids. We had budgeted $30,000 for this building condition assessment work, and we've come in pretty close at 32. So you have a recommendation in front of you to award this work to Accent Building Sciences Inc. They did the building condition assessments in Perth East. We checked that reference and there was no concerns expressed.
Council Purview?
Can you describe, Fred, what they're gonna look at, like, will it be insulation, hydro, like everything? Or they cover all the basics?
Everything, including any implications related to the retirement of that asset. So if they find an asset that they suspect, for example, has asbestos in it, that will need to be handled carefully when that asset is retired. So they'll incorporate that into the funding model for the retirement of that asset, for example. But they'll be looking at HVAC systems, they'll be looking at windows, doors, roofs, security systems, plumbing systems, insulation, windows, age, strength, maintenance.
Physically looking at stuff.
Physically.
Okay.
Walking through every one of our assets, looking at, including things like playground structures, whether they meet CSA standards. If not, then budget for replacement of those things. We'll be getting them to take a deep dive over at the pool, so to speak. Nice. After the water.
Took a minute.
So yeah, we'll definitely be getting them to take a careful look at the facility over there, as well as the community center here.
Deputy Mayor.
Comment and question. I really don't like spending money on consultants, but I feel that this is probably necessary and beneficial down the road for your council's decisions. And my question is, will they be looking at the Grant Fire Hall also?
Yes. Yeah, that's one of the assets.
Any other questions regarding this? Councilor Jeff Bell?
So this is a requirement, right, under OREG 588?
It is.
And so the work is to be completed by the contractor by July 1st, or we have to have the work completed? So it's just.
Yes, so ideally, we would have the work completed and be in a position to submit the report by July 1st.
Okay.
No, I should be corrected. We don't have to submit it. We just confirm that the work is done.
Okay.
Has to become part of our asset management plan.
Okay.
That we have to submit to the problem. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other questions, I have a recommendation that the municipal council of the township of Perth South award the tender for the provision of building condition assessment, BCA, services to ABSI, and that the mayor and the clerk are authorized to execute the necessary arrangements. Moved by Councillor Jeff Bell, seconded by Councillor Corby. All those in favor? Carried.
Those are my reports. Thank you.
Okay, 8.4, Lizette.
My first report is my update report, if anybody has any questions.
Any questions for Lizette? Did we have one, Councillor Jeff Bell?
Sorry.
No problem.
Written down here. No, sorry, sorry.
Okay,
Sorry.
no problem. I have a recommendation that the clerk's update report be received for information. Moved by Counselor Martin, second by Counselor Vanessa. All those in favor? Carried. And I am at the council remuneration report. Any questions regarding that? Counselor Martin?
I just would like to make a point that that's a hotel room reimbursement. I wasn't that busy last month doing council business, it was just cleaned up from January. So, in case anybody wondered, usually I'm on the bottom end of things.
Okay, I have a recommendation that the report regarding the council payroll, March 2025, dated April 15th, 2025, including total payroll of $6,162.94 be approved. Moved by Deputy Mayor Wilhelm, second by Councillor Corview. All those in favor? Carried. So we have a report about the Court Security and Prisoner Transportation Program, the 2025 funding agreement. Generally, this does come to us every year, but would you like to comment on it?
Was that completed it? Essentially, it's just, money that we hand over to Stratford Police, that, they use it to transport prisoners. That's what it.
It's a report that Rebecca used to bring forward each year, and the Solicitor General office was in touch with us, and we needed to get it moving forward. So I just, I'm helping out as Tracy's just trying to figure out that office, so that's all it is. It's just a, as you recognize in the report, the funding seems to be getting less and less each year. And it's not a lot of money for the paperwork that's involved, so I don't, it's based on an average, municipalities throughout the province, and I think everyone's getting less funding, but that's all I can really tell you. So.
Okay, not seeing any questions. I have a recommendation that the council of the township of Perth South receive the report Court Security Prisoner Transportation Program 2025 funding agreement dated April 15th, 2025, and that the council authorize the mayor and the clerk to execute the agreement between the township of Perth South and His Majesty the King and the right of Ontario as represented by the Solicitor General to secure provincial funding allocation for 2025 under the Court Security and Prisoner Transportation Program. Moved by Deputy Mayor Wilhelm, second by Councillor Corview. All those in favor? Carried. We are at Huron County Library Services.
Thank you, Mayor Orr. So this last report just kind of was bringing council back up to speed. We've seen library services brought before us for quite a lot in the last year. Council decided to enter into 5-year agreements with the Town of St. Mary's and the Stratford libraries. So you will no longer be seeing those reports coming forward annually for those 2 library services as we have that agreement. However, during the discussions, Huron County Library was left as is. We did have a presentation from the CEO of the Huron County Library at the end of last year, and she brought forward the 2025 impact to the budget was, I think, a 2% increase. So this is just the next step where we sign the agreement to set up the payment schedule for this year.
Any questions? Councillor Jethro?
So that, obviously I was not, I hear that. Would it not be beneficial or easier for forecasting to look at 5-year agreements with Huron County and LL, or is that just something that Huron County doesn't want to do?
I don't really have an answer for that. They run the library out of the Curtin Community Center. I believe that during the discussions that we had with council, there was no issue with that current arrangement. We were more concerned about the rising costs that we were seeing from St. Mary's and Stratford. So we we entered into negotiations at the beginning of the last year's budget year, and that's how it all kind of came into play, and if council would like to look at entering into that type of an arrangement. I know that the CAO was quite involved with those negotiations, and he might have more to say on the topic, but I know generally the Huron County has been proposing basically a 2% increase each year for the last, I don't know how many years, but that's all I have on that.
Thank you.
Through the mayor, I'm certainly happy to talk to, the CEO to see if they're willing to entertain a multi-year agreement. We've never asked. The other two agreements were pretty intense set of negotiations, so we kind of moved along with Huron County because the increase that they were requesting was fairly reasonable. But there's no reason we shouldn't explore that, and I will. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor,
I'm the opposite. I'm thinking that, it's been working extremely well going annual. Why rock the boat? Because they might say, no, we think you should pay 20,000. So I would not rock the boat.
I'll go back to my office.
So our recommendation is the council receive the report entitled Library Service Contract with Huron County Library for information, and that council authorize the clerk and the mayor to execute the Huron County Library contract for 2025. Moved by Councillor Jeff Bell, seconded by Councillor Vanessa. All those in favor, carried. And the correspondence? No, I think we've got enough. Council reports, we'll start with Council Cormier.
Not too much. The Shakespeare sewage plant was very beneficial. It cleared up a lot of misunderstandings. I didn't have any, but it really helped. I can explain stuff to people now, so I really appreciate that. And you know, if we do look at an open house there for the public, I think that could be a very huge one too. So yeah, thanks for setting that up. That was really good.
So was that?
I haven't got much. I sit on the Lucan Fire Review Committee, and as they're would all has 51% ownership of Granton, their fire review recommended some efficiencies and changes. So I think Fred and Ron, their CEO, are going to be in discussions, and you'll see some information coming back on that, I'm sure.
Want to mention anything about county or?
That's quick, no.
Councillor
I'd just like to echo, Councillor Corview, thank you to Lizette and I'm surprised how small that plant is. Stunned, actually, so thank you for that, and that's all.
Councillor Jeffa?
I'm gonna echo as well. That was really, really beneficial. And I didn't take pictures because without context, it wasn't gonna make any sense.
Sorry, I'm not having to really justify that I didn't go because I was sick. We just want to ask for pictures, but no, I haven't.
Right. Yes, county had approved their budget of 11.35. Good discussion, but it just seems to be a lot of things out of our control. Inflationary pressures that have come from Spruce Lodge. I sit on that board as well, if they're trying to get caught up from COVID years, and so I think we really tried to get it down, but I didn't see any give. So and other than that, it's just been busy. I've just had a lot on the go lately. So okay, so in front of you have the mayor's report for March. Recommended. I should mention that the Rural Urban Night, it was a Perth South farmer that received some award, so we might be following up with giving him a bit of a recognition, so. The recommendation that the report regarding the mayor's monthly activity report for the month of March 2025, dated April 15th, 2025, be received for information. Moved by Councillor Vanessa, second by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? All those in favor? Okay, I don't see any bylaws, announcements, notice of motion, other business. Question public period, confirmatory bylaw, the bylaw 2025 being the bylaw to adopt. Confirm and ratify matters dealt with by resolution of the Township of Perth South, be given first, second, and third readings and be properly signed and sealed. Moved by Councillor Martin, second by Councillor Jeff Bell. All those in favor? Carried. And I have a recommendation that the meeting does hereby adjourn at 9:57. Moved by Councillor Corview, second by Deputy Mayor Wilhelm. All those in favor? Carried. At least we got it under.
It's like the wrong second.